Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto do training and studying and has Hinata with him part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Tsunade Senju, Godame Hokage of Konoha, sat in a chair at the foot of the bed of Naruto Uzumaki. She looked at his sleeping form with sadness in her eyes and thought, I can't believe that those bastards on the council would threaten me like this. Flashback. Tsunade stood in front of the council and asked while releasing some kai, would you please repeat that again? Danzo said because of the actions of one Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha has left the village and we of the council have decided for the good of the village that you have two choices, one is to have him executed. Now, we all know of your feelings for the boy, so we give you the second option, exile. If he is not out of the village in 10 days then we will issue orders for him to be executed. Tsunade said you can't do that. I am the Hokage and I. Danzo said yes, we know, you do not agree with our decision, which is why we will notify the Fire Lord and he will support our decision. That is all, you have 10 days to make your decision. Good day. As he got up along with the entire council minus the clans and left, Tsunade frowned and looked around at the members who were still left and asked what about you people? What do you have to say about this order? The Ashi frowned and said I am indebted to Uzumaki for changing Niji for the better. I do not support this decision but was outvoted. Inoichi said actually Hokage-sama, all of the clans were against this, but they outvoted us. We have all been either neutral or partially favorable to the boy. Sum asked what do you plan to do, Hokage-sama? Tsunade said I don't know. The Ashi stood up and said may I make a request, Hokage-sama? Tsunade turned to look at him and he said if you do banish Naruto, please send Hinata with him. Making everyone wide-eyed. Tsunade asked why. The Ashi frowned and said because this will destroy what confidence she has. Everyone knows of her interest into the boy and if she reverts any, then the Hyuga Council will force me to put the caged bird seal on her. I do not wish that for either of my daughters, so at least if she was with Naruto, then she could be happy at least until my clan council decides to try to get her back. I may appear to not care for my daughter, but the truth is I only wanted her to find strength and be happy. I ask that if she does leave with him that none of the rest of the clans reveal what I have said. As one parent to another. Tsunade frowned and said I will consider it for now, I just need time to think. Then flashback. Tsunade sighed as she looked at the form of Naruto and thought what am I going to do? I only came back to this damn village because of him becoming angry. With furrowed brows, she continued if he's not wanted, then neither am I as she clenched her fist. Jiraiya looked at her as he came in through the window and said I heard what happened and came back as fast as I could. What do you plan to do? Tsunade said I have no reason to stay in Konoha if he is not here. You know I only joined because I believed in him. Jiraiya frowned and said then what? If you leave then Danzo will take control and have Rude and Anbu after him before the end of the day. Tsunade frowned for a minute and then smirked and said, not if the Rakudame Hokage were to keep control at least until I could get him to safety. Jiraiya said no wait Tsunade. I am not taking that job. Tsunade snorted and said agree to it and I will give you the one thing you always wanted. Jiraiya frowned and glared at her and said that's low, Haim. You know I only want that if your heart was in it, not because of some payment. I know you care for him Haim, as much as I do. He is my godson for Kami's sake. Tsunade said and what have you done for him? You've just taught him two jutsu, one of which is his birthright. I talked to him and I read all the reports Sensei had on his education and training. I know how you only started to train him after he had to bribe you with his unique henge. You care more for nudity than you do for him, so if it takes you having me model for you nude to do the right damn thing for him, then so be it. Jiraiya closed his eyes and said fine I will take the job and give you as much time as I can. What do you plan? Tsunade's eyes softened and she said I have a plan, I need some things from you in 2 days. I plan to leave the village with him then. Jiraiya asked have you told him yet? Tsunade nods and said yeah, I told him earlier after I checked on his injuries. He's hurt by it Jiraiya. Jiraiya frowned and said tell me what you need so I can get it. Tsunade smiled softly and began to tell him what she needed. When she was done Jiraiya blinked and said well that won't be too hard to get those items and I believe I can get the approval. I will see you in your office in 2 days and I won't tell anyone. As he leaped out the window. Tsunade watched him go and thought thank you, you old pervert. The next day Hinata walked into Tsunade's office with Hiashi and he said we have come as summoned Tsunade-sama. Tsunade made sure the door was closed and put up a privacy jutsu and said now that I am sure no one can listen to us I will speak. Hinata Hyuga, your sensei and your father have told me how you have an interest in healing. Hinata stuttered yes Hokage-sama. Tsunade nodded and asked what is your opinion of Naruto Uzumaki. Hinata turned red and Hiashi said go ahead Hinata and speak the truth. I hold no judgment in this and I support you. Hinata nodded and stuttered he inspires me Hokage-sama, no matter what happens he always gets back up and keeps going. He is very brave and Tsunade interrupted her and said alright, let's just hurry this up. I will ask you a question and you will shake your head yes or no okay. Hinata nodded and Tsunade asked do you like him? Hinata nodded and Tsunade asked is more than a friend. Hinata looked at her dad who nodded and she nodded and Tsunade asked if you had a chance to be with him, would you take it? Hinata quickly nodded and Tsunade asked even if you had to leave the village and your clan and family. Hinata froze as she looked at her father who said this is a decision that you will have to make on your own Hinata. This is one decision where you will have to live with your choice, so don't worry about what anyone else thinks but yourself. Hinata closed her eyes and said why do you ask me this, Tsunade-sama? Without a stutter. Tsunade looked at her and said what I am about to tell you, you cannot tell anyone or repeat, am I understood, both of you? Making Hiashi look curiously. Hinata nodded along with Hiashi and Tsunade said, I will give you the quick version, because I have a lot to do and not a lot of time. The Yondaime could not kill the Kyuubi as you were told, he had to instead seal it into a newborn baby. His son. Making Hiashi eyes wide. Tsunade continued by doing that he made it such that when his son dies the Kyuubi will die as well. They are two separate beings but Hinata said, but Naruto-kun is seen as the Kyuubi, attacked, glared, hurt and treated unfairly. Making both Hiashi and Tsunade look at her. Hiashi asked how did you know Tsunade is speaking about Naruto? Hinata frowned and said the night he stole the forbidden scroll, I snuck out and followed him. Hiashi frowned and Hinata said I heard what Mizuki and Iruka said that night, I finally knew why he was treated the way he is. Tsunade saw the look on Hiashi's face and asked, and what do you think of him? Hinata put her fingers together and said I only see him as that much of a hero for it. Tsunade said the council of Konoha, in its infinite wisdom, decided that I have two options, to banish Naruto or to have him executed. The clans were against this, but they were outnumbered. Hinata looked down at this and Tsunade asked would you like to go with him? Hinata bit her lip and nods and Tsunade said good, now Hiashi, I am afraid that is all I can say with you here because the rest of our conversation is the details about when they will leave and what is to happen. I request that you please prepare anything you wish for her to take with her and seal it into a scroll for her and bring it to me tonight at midnight. Now if you would please leave and allow me to speak with Hinata privately. Hiashi nods and said as he stopped at the door, no matter what you think of me or what I have done in the past or may have to do in the future, I have always loved you and I was only hard on you because I wanted you to become stronger and find happiness. If being with Naruto gives you that then you have my blessings for what it's worth you know I am, but one man and I will have to answer to the council and protect your sister, please be strong and good luck my daughter. I love you and your mother would be proud. As he walked out the door. Hinata fell to the floor crying after he left and Tsunade got up and went around and hugged her and said shh it will be okay Hinata. I promise. After several minutes Hinata calmed down and Tsunade stood up and said now we have much to discuss. You see we leave tomorrow at 5 AM. I have two very trusted shunins doing guard duty. Hinata asked we. Tsunade said yes, you see along with Naruto both Shizune and I will be going with you. I am taking you both as apprentices. Leave your headband here when you leave today and pack your clothes and anything you might need. I read in Kurenai's report of your team that she taught you the basic of sealing. So, seal everything you wish to bring so we can travel fast. If you wish to see anyone before you leave you need to do so now, but you can't tell them why you are leaving. Inform them that I have you along with 3 others going on a special C-rank mission that you cannot tell about for security of the client. Hinata asked how is Naruto-kun taking this? With a stutter. Tsunade frowned and said you will learn tomorrow. Now please leave and do what you need to and do not seek out Naruto because you won't find him. Okay. Hinata nodded and left. The next morning at 5 AM, Tsunade walked to the gates with Shizune and Naruto and saw Hinata already standing there, waiting. Tsunade asked are you ready? Hinata nodded and Tsunade said good, let's go. As she walked out the gates with the others following. About 2 miles away from Konoha, Naruto said this is far enough. As he was covered in smoke and a 5 feet tall toad was standing there where Naruto had been. Hinata asked where is Naruto-kun and what's going on? Tsunade said relax Hinata. You see, Naruto is still too injured to move, even with his healing abilities he wouldn't be able to move without re-injuring himself for another 4 days. This is a toad summon. The toads have taken Naruto to Miyabaki's mountain. Now if you would please grab the toad and he will take you there as well. You need to hurry, though. Hinata looked confused and asked what about you? Tsunade smirked and said don't worry, I will be joining you soon along with Shizune in 10 days. For now take this scroll and begin to do what it tells you until Naruto has healed enough. Hinata took the scroll and did as she was told and grabbed the toad. Soon they were both covered in smoke and soon appeared on a mountain with several giant toad statues. The toad said, please wait here. As he jumped away. A few minutes later a small orange toad in a vest appeared and said so you are Hinata. I am Gamakichi. I am one of Naruto's favorite summon. Please follow me. Hinata looked around and nods as the toad began to lead her away. Back with Tsunade and Shizune, after Hinata left, both looked at each other and Tsunade said last chance Shizune, you can turn back now or Shizune said my place is with you, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade said right, then you know the plan, let's go. As both took off leaping through the trees. Hinata looked at the hut Gamakichi leader too and Gamakichi said bro's in there asleep. Slug lady put him in a medical coma until he heals. If you need anything just ring the bell on the front of the hut but please do not wander around out of sight of this hut. It is not safe here for outsiders without a guide. Good luck. As he jumped away. Hinata looked at him until he was gone and she stepped into the hut and saw a toad sitting on Naruto's stomach and he looked at her and nodded before he jumped away. Hinata walked over and looked at Naruto and saw he had bandages over his chest. She closed her eyes and activated her bloodline and looked at Naruto. She gasped and thought poor Naruto-kun, did Sasuke do this to you? As she cancelled her bloodline and sat down moving the hair away from his face. After about an hour of looking at him sleep, she pulled out the scroll Tsunade had given her and opened it and read. Hinata, if you're reading this then you have already been taken to where Naruto is. Please make sure that he does not move around too much when he wakes up. Now for yourself I don't know what is there you can use or not, so I have several books that I want you to read while you watch our favorite knucklehead. When he wakes up have him read them as well. Please help him when he needs it and give him support. Test him on what you both read to make sure he actually knows it. I want at least a book on basic anatomy memorized by you both by the time we meet up. Tsunade. Hinata looked at seal with the kanji for 1 on it and unsealed it with chakra and out popped a book labeled basic anatomy. She looked at Naruto and then sighed as she opened the book and began to read. Later that afternoon, in Konoha, in the Hokage office there was a knock on the door. Tsunade said come in. As she was looking at some books on her desk. Amura and Kaharu both walked into her office and she looked up and glared before looking back at the book she was reading and asked what do you want? With disdain in her voice. Amura said we came to see if you have decided what to do about Uzumaki. Tsunade said Naruto is still in a coma from the Chidori Sasuke shoved in his chest. I will not make a decision without talking with him about it first. Kaharu said we had heard he had awoken already and you had talked with him. Tsunade said and this from the same people who wish he was dead. Sorry to disappoint, but even with the Kyuubi inside him helping he is not immortal and still human and requires time to recover from near death. Anyone who attempts to harm him before he is healed enough to either leave or face his execution will result in the death of not only the person who attempted it but their 3 closest blood relatives or if they are not any relatives, then their teammates. Both Kaharu and Hamura eyes got wide and Hamura said, you can't do that, Tsunade. Tsunade said I have already made it official and sent it to the Fire Lord along with a copy of your orders, his medical file about his injuries, the mission he was on, as well as the other members who were with him and their reports, as well as a few other files I found in Sensei's files I thought would be important. You want to fight, well this bitch has claws. Now get the hell out of my office or I will send you both to Ibiki for insubordination. Kaharu frowned and Hamura said this isn't over Tsunade. Before Himaru could say anything Tsunade had cleared her desk and had slammed her against a bookshelf and said, do not threaten me you old bastard. I am the Hokage and you are my advisors. Do not try my patience. As she let go of Hamura and stepped back and said do not bother me until the time limit is up or I will kill you. Now, both advisors quickly left and after they were gone Tsunade slumped into a chair and was covered in smoke as Jiraiya appeared and thought well, that will buy you some time Haim. Let's see what else I can do how perfect. Jiraiya quickly put up a henge again and pressed a seal under the desk and said Anbu. Poor Anbu appeared and Tsunade said get me Hada Kakashi and bring him yourselves. I want him here. Right. Now. The 4 Anbu quickly left and Tsunade smirked and began to write something down and about 10 minutes later Kakashi appeared with the 4 Anbu. Kakashi asked don't you think this was a little overboard Hokage-sama? Tsunade looked up and glared at him and said Anbu, leave us. And they left. She then said now Kakashi, I have been reviewing some files on Team 7 along with your personal files. I do not have a lot of faith in you at the moment from what I have read. According to your own reports all you have done is trained your team and teamwork in tree climbing, while you focused on the Uchiha. Kakashi frowned behind his mask and opened his mouth to say something when Tsunade said, don't say a word or I will have you do D-rank missions for a year in one of Guy's jumpsuits. Kakashi shuddered and Tsunade said now, I read your report that there was nothing you could teach them because of their lack of chakra control, and I find that hard to believe that a man who has copied over 1000 jutsu could not find something that they could learn. So, I am giving you the next 5 days to write down every jutsu you know, hand signs, how to do it and a description of the jutsu. Kakashi said, but Tsunade slammed her fist into the desk and said that is not a request. It is an order. I want that in my hands in 5 days or I will have your Sharingan eye removed and destroyed and have you put on trial for treason because purposely sabotaging your genin team training qualifies as insubordination, especially with us in a war now. Now get started, time is counting down. Kakashi said yes Hokage-sama. As he shunshin away. After he was gone Tsunade released the jutsu and Jiraiya was seen again and he thought well, that should help you, Haim, with his training. But the real Tsunade sighed as she and Shizune sat on a river and Shizune said, where exactly are we going Tsunade-sama? Tsunade said by now Jiraiya should have sent those reports I fixed up to the Fire Lord as well as a copy of my final orders. Shizune asked what were they? I know you had me getting several items for you like the Forbidden Scroll, the Sarutobi clan summoning contract, money from the Konoha treasury. Though, why was it such a weird amount? Tsunade smirked and said Konoha was originally founded by the Senju and the Uchiha clans. As part of the original charter if either clan were to leave the village, they would split the village in half between the two clans. What I had you take was exactly half of the Konoha treasury which is legally mine. Shizune frowned and said alright, I can understand that. But what were your orders? And why the summoning contract? Tsunade said Asuma had a falling out between him and his father, refusing to ever sign the contract. I fear that it will never find its way to Konohamaru's arms. So, I am taking it until he reaches the age at which he will be capable of using it. As for my other orders, I officially took Naruto and Hinata as my apprentice and had both promoted to the rank of Chunin. I have their vests with me. I also made it so that both of them plus both of us are officially cleared of all past, present and future obligation to the village of Konoha. Taunton who was in Shizune's arms squealed and Tsunade said yeah, you too Taunton. As Tsunade and Shizune laughed. Tsunade smirked and said I also did something that is going to make it extremely hard for Konoha for the next few months. In 3 days' time Jiraiya who is impersonating me at the moment will send out an order for an official public audit of all the clans and the council financial holdings, which require the clans to withdraw all their money from their accounts in the bank and with the Senju money being removed that will pretty much bankrupt the banks and the council as well, since they won't receive their orders until the day after, by which time they won't be able to get any money making it where they can't pay for any missions. Shizune's eyes got wide and said that's evil Tsunade-sama and then smirked, saying I like it. Tsunade sighed and said well I also took the hat. Shizune asked really, why? Tsunade smirked and said I like the hat. We should get going now to make sure anyone who's following us will have a hard time tracking us down. The next 3 days went by with Jiraiya impersonating Tsunade. Only D-rank missions were being issued. The day Tsunade sat in her office and said Anbu. While using a seal under the desk. The Anbu appeared and Tsunade said please take these orders to each of the clans of Konoha. To the clan heads themselves. As she handed them several scrolls. The Anbu said hi. As they quickly left. The Ashi was in his office when a knock on the door was heard and he said enter. The branch member with an Anbu walked in and the Anbu said excuse me Hiashi-sama, but this is from the Hokage. As he held out a scroll. Hiashi took it. Once that was done the Anbu left. The Ashi raised an eyebrow and opened the scroll and read, hello Hiashi, I am sending this to inform you that because of certain information I have received of theft of funds from our treasury by members of the council. I have decided to do an audit of each of the council members and their families' funds to verify the information I have received. I am sending this notice to each of the clans first because I do not believe that the clans are involved, but I have to be fair to everyone as Hokage and investigate you as well, seeing that you are a member of the council. This is nothing personal. Now what I would like to request of you is to gather all your family assets from any accounts you have and hold them until this audit is over to ensure there is no laundering, shall we say, of money from one group to another to cover their guilt. By my orders the council cannot force you to return the funds until the audit is done to every member of the council and then the treasury of the village to verify that the correct amount is there. I am requesting that all involved in this audit use the enclosed ledger to record all transactions of your funds made during the time of the audit. I will have the auditor begin on Monday and the council will be informed tomorrow, so you have a day to gather your funds as do each of the other clans. I thank you for your service in aiding me during this time and I will make this as painless as possible for those involved. Tsunade Senju, Adim Hokage, P.S. Due to the recent defection of Sasuke Uchiha, all funds, property, and assets debts of the Uchiha clan go to the closest living relatives in Konoha. Namely the Hyuga clan, effective tomorrow. I have the official transfer of ownership orders enclosed below in the seal that contains the ledger. The Ashi blinked and blinked again and thought what the hell are you up to Tsunade? This is a very bold move. And said have the entire branch family gather in the main hall immediately. To the branch member who was waiting to be released. The branch member said yes, Hiashi-sama. As he turned and left. As Hiashi unsealed the items he thought this is going to be interesting. Similar thoughts went through the clan heads all thought the village as they received their scrolls with similar notes. As this was going on, Tsunade and Shizune were on a boat and Shizune asked so now that we are on our way to Mist, what are you planning? Tsunade smirked and said simple. We get a hotel and get spotted a few times by the local ninjas and then we henge and leave town on another boat to our next destination. Shizune said, thus making anyone who follows us having a harder time to follow our trail. So how many of these little diversions are we making? Tsunade said, we already did one in Wave and we'll have one in Mist Lake today, and then we will leave two more before we meet Naruto and Hinata, one in Snow Country and one in Tea Country before we head to our real destination. Shizune asked, which is? Tsunade smirked and said, it's a surprise. Just trust me, it will be worth it. Shizune frowned and said, tell me we're not going to be gambling. Tsunade said, nope, not right now at least. This is too important to gamble on. Shizune blinked and blinked again as she put her hands together and said Kai. And tried it again and again until Tsunade slapped her upside the head. Shizune looked sheepish and said, sorry. It's just that you not wanting to gamble is shocking. Tsunade sighed and said, don't rub it in. As she closed her eyes and squeezed Taunton, who squealed happily. When Naruto awoke, he looked around and saw a weird-looking hut that he had never seen before, and he saw Hinata sleeping on a bed across from him, and he thought, where am I? He then noticed a weight on his stomach, and he looked down and saw a toad with a stick sitting on his stomach, and he asked, who are you? The toad looked at Naruto and said, I am Fukasaku, but you can call me Pa. My wife Shinma, who you can call Ma, and I were the assistants to the elder toad before his passing, and we are now the elder toads. You can think of me as the Fire Lord and Gambunta as the Hokage, if it makes it easier to understand. Naruto nodded and asked, okay, so why are you here? And where are the three of us right now? Said Miyabaki's Mountain or Toad Mountain. What do you remember? Naruto frowned and thought. Flashback. Naruto slowly awoke and saw a white hospital room. He looked over to see Tsunade, who was removing her hand from his head, and he asked what happened. Tsunade said, what do you remember? Naruto thought and said, I remember Sasuke and I fighting at some valley, and as his eyes went wide he looked down. To see his chest was heavily bandaged. Tsunade said, if you were anyone else, you would have died. Luckily Kakashi found you and was able to bring you back, and I was able to save you. With sadness in her voice. Naruto looked at her and saw she had been crying. He asked, kindly, what's wrong? You said I am okay, so why are you sad? Tsunade frowned and said, the council is blaming you for Sasuke's defection. They are forcing me to either have you banished or executed. Naruto closed his eyes and thought, why would the council? Kyuubi, it has to be Kyuubi. Why, in the 9 hells, can't they see me and that bastard are two different beings altogether? As he looked at Tsunade. With a grim face, he asked, so when will I die? Tsunade said, you're not. I have some things to take care of, but you are not going to die. Just rest for now and leave things to me, okay? I will protect you, Atato-chan. Before Naruto could say anything, Tsunade placed her hand on his head and he fell back to sleep. Then flashback. Naruto frowned and said, I was either going to be banished or executed, and Tsunade said she would not let me die. Said Tsunade kept her word and protected you by sending you here to finish healing. Then you will meet up with her and someone named Shizune later. Naruto looked confused and asked, smiled and said, don't worry about it. There is a scroll there for you to read, since you can't walk for another 2 days without re-injuring yourself. As he pointed toward a scroll and hopped off. Naruto asked, wait, what about Hinata? Looked back and said, you will have to ask her yourself. If you need anything, have the girl ring the bell and someone will come. There is a bathroom behind the door to the left there, but there is no shower, sorry. We hardly ever have humans here. As he hopped away. Naruto frowned as he picked up a scroll sitting on a book and he read it and thought, so Hinata is here to help keep an eye on me, Hinata moaned as she rolled over and opened her eyes and saw Naruto sitting up holding a scroll, and she quickly sat up and said, Naruto-kun. Naruto said, hey Hinata, what's up? I mean, why did Tsunade Bachan send you to keep an eye on me? Hinata looked around and put her fingers together and said with stutter, well, she asked. I accepted. Naruto looked confused and asked, but why you? Hinata blushed and asked in a stutter, can we talk about that later? Tsunade-sama wants us to study while we are here. As she looked down. Naruto frowned and said, I guess you're right, but I don't see why I need to read this. Hinata said, I am sure Tsunade-sama has her reasons, Naruto-kun. In a stutter. Naruto nods and said, why not? I don't have anything else I can do right now anyways. Do you want to read this? Hinata blushed and said, I already did. I finished it while you were SSL sleeping. IMS starting the XXT book. I'll read why, as she showed the book that was beside her when she fell asleep reading. Naruto blinked and looked at the book that was under the scroll and asked, how long have we been here? Because this book is huge. Hinata said 3 days. Naruto said 3 days and you've been here that whole time? Hinata could only nod, and Naruto thought, why would Hinata agree to watch me while I was asleep for that long? As he glanced at Hinata, who was read and reading a book. Naruto sighed and he opened the book and began to read. The next day in Konoha, Tsunade summoned her Anbu again and when they appeared, said please take this official orders to the council and tell them it's non-negotiable and failure to do so shall result in immediate 10 years of prison for treason. Inside the council chambers a few minutes later the Anbu appeared and Homura asked, why are you here Anbu? One said Hokage-sama sent this here and said to tell you that it is non-negotiable and failure to do so shall result in immediate 10 years of prison for treason. As he handed the scroll to Himaru before leaving with his squad. Amura took the scroll and opened it and began to read, and his eyes went wide. Danzo asked what does the princess say? Amura said she claims to have received reports of theft of village funds by members of the council and has ordered an audit of all council members and their families. Danzo said she can't do that. The Ashi smirked along with the other clan heads and he said actually she can and my clan has claimed all of our assets already for the audit as per her orders. Danzo frowned and saw the other clans nod and thought what are you up to, Tsunade? The Ashi saw the frown and said the funny thing is when my clan claimed all our assets, it seemed a huge chunk was missing. So, I have to agree and support this claim that someone is taking funds from the village funds. Beharu asked what do you mean when you talk about your clan and the village funds? They are two separate accounts. The Ashi smirked and said actually, when I took this letter of authorization, Tsunade gave me the bank manager informed me that Tsunade took what belonged to the Senju clan for her family audit as well, and when I claimed the Uchiha clan funds, there was a huge chunk missing. A civilian asked wait, what right do you have to the Uchiha funds? The Ashi pulled out a scroll and read as per order of the Godame Hokage of Konoha, with the defection of the last Uchiha, all assets that belong to the Uchiha clan including money debt, lands, and property hereby go to their closest living relatives, the Hyuga clan. Several people frowned at this, and Homura said she does not have the authorization to do that. The Ashi pulled out another scroll and said according to the village charter, in the event of the destruction of a family no longer residing in Konoha by death, becoming a missing nin, or going missing, all their assets will transfer to the closest living relative, and since the Uchiha clan was once part of the Hyuga clan, that makes my clan the closest living relative. Several people frowned at this, and Homura said that still does not explain why you are messing with the village funds. Several people looked at Hiashi and he said thank you for asking, you see it was pointed out to me that because of the village charter, the village funds are divided evenly between the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan due to the fact both clans were the founding clans of Konoha and set the account up with their own funds. Danzo frowned at this and thought this is not good if the Hyuga clan and Tsunade has all the village funds and the clan's accounts then as his eyes went wide as he realized something and said very clever, Tsunade. Drawing everyone's attention. The Haru asked what are you going on about Danzo? Danzo said Tsunade has effectively shut the village down by doing this. If the village funds are now in the control of the Hyuga and Senju clans, we can't afford to pay for any missions, thus making the situation unstable, as we can't send anyone on any mission until the funds are returned. I say we should overrule her on this matter, so that we can continue to run the village. The Ashi said, my clan refuses to return the funds until the missing funds are found. There is over 200 million missing from the village funds, and neither the council nor the Hokage can tell a clan what to do. Unless, of course, you wish to have a civil war in the village. Finished Hiashi. Amura said then how are we to afford to pay for missions? The Ashi said that is not my problem. The audit begins on Monday, so I would say you all should be more worried about getting your assets together because I know for a fact that all three banks in the village claimed that nearly all the funds in the bank were now gone since each of the clans have collected our assets. Danzo thought clever move, Tsunade. First a Fire Lord who should have received your message by now will be here in a few days. And now, the bank's cutting off our funding does she know of my route program? While Danzo was thinking he had missed the gasp of several civilian members who quickly left. Hiashi thought I see what you have planned now, Tsunade. You knew that when you gave me the Uchiha assets that I would have no choice but to inquire as to why the Uchiha part of the village accounts was less than it should have been, especially when you took exactly half, according to the ledger, that should have been there. I wonder how Hinata and Naruto are. With that, Hiashi left the room. The next day, Kakashi appeared in the Hokage office and saw Jiraiya sitting in Tsunade's desk. He asked where is Tsunade-sama? Jiraiya said Kakashi, I take it that you have listed down all the jutsu you know as Tsunade had asked. Kakashi frowned behind his mask and said yes Jiraiya-sama, but how do you know about it? Jiraiya said Tsunade mentioned it when she went to check on Naruto. She said that you would drop by sometime today. With the recent events between her and the council, she asked me to watch her office while she was away to ensure no one broke in and took something. She also told me to take a look at the list and compare the chakra and control level both Sakura and Naruto displayed at the time I took over his training to see if you were telling the truth or not. Kakashi sighed and said then I suppose I should hand this in to you then. As he pulled out 5 scrolls each labeled under different elements. Jiraiya nodded and took them. He said well, you may go while I review this and don't worry. Unless there are several blatant deceptions that I can see you were lying, I will support you. After all, I am a reasonable man and you are my #1 fan. And, I am not emotional like Tsunade can be. You are dismissed. Kakashi said thank you Jiraiya-sama. As he left. The smile on Jiraiya's face fell, and he thought, well, that movie about the clown and the flying rodent man I saw in my travels was good. You are my number one guy and pow, kill the bastard. Now let's see what we got, Kakashi. I am so going to make your life hell. Jiraiya looked around and bit his thumb and quickly went through hand signs and said Kuchius no Jutsu. As he slammed his hand down and an orange toad appeared who said yo. Jiraiya said Gamakichi, listen a moment. I need you to see to it that Naruto gives these to Tsunade when they meet up, okay? It's important. Gamakichi nods and grabs the scrolls and disappears and Jiraiya sighed as he slumped into the chair. He said now it's time for Tsunade to make her grand disappearance. With a smile, which vanished as he pulled out a scroll and henge into Tsunade and pressed the seal under the desk and said Anbu. When the Anbu appeared, Tsunade said please take this to the council in exactly 1 hour. Dismissed. As she handed a scroll to the Anbu and they left. After they were gone she quickly pulled out some tags Jiraiya had been working on while he was there in the office and put them on the walls, windows, and as she closed the door as she walked out, she placed several on the door and shunshin away and dropped the hinge and Jiraiya thought, smirking, now nobody can enter the office until I am named Hokage. He then headed toward the hot springs with a little giggle. Tsunade was on a boat heading towards Snow Country. She thought, why do I feel like punching Jiraiya right now? Shizune asked, are you alright Tsunade-sama? Tsunade sighed, shook her head, and said, must be my nerves or something. It won't be long until we reach Snow Country, then I can send word to Princess Koyuki Kazuhana about what happened to Naruto and our little escape. Shizune asked, do you believe she will take it as Tazuna did? Tsunade thought, remembering Tazuna's reaction. Flashback, Tsunade and Shizune after leaving Konoha headed toward Wave Country. When they got there both women blinked. Tsunade said, with dinner plate eyes, what the hell, the brats got the bridge named after him. Shizune said, I had no idea, nobody ever told us about this. Tsunade said, with half-lidded eyes, look. As she pointed to a plaque and she walked over and read, the Great Naruto Bridge, named after the boy who became a hero by freeing a nation, restoring our faith and teaching us the value of true strength. May the legend of this bridge shine as brightly as the legend of our hero. Dedicated to Naruto Uzumaki and the Konoha ninjas who came with him in our darkest hour. Tsunade blinked and said, oh, we have got to hear about this. I read Kakashi's report over this mission. How Sasuke and Sakura were prime examples of teamwork and how Naruto's use of Kage Bunshin sped up the bridge building. But I never heard anything about this. I thought the people here might be sympathetic to Naruto, but this may be more than I could ever imagine. Let's see if we can find this Tazuna and hear his version. As she crossed the bridge with Shizune and Taunton. About an hour later, after getting directions, they came upon Tazuna's house. Tsunade knocked on the door. A few moments later a black-haired girl about the same age as Naruto opened the door and her eyes got wide a moment and tried to hide a response, but both Tsunade and Shizune caught it and the girl said, yes, can I help you? Tsunade said, I am looking for Tazuna. The bridge builder. The girl said, oh, he's out at the moment but will be back in a few hours. May I ask what you wish to see him about? Tsunade said, it's about Naruto Uzumaki. The girl's eyes widened and said, Naruto-kun, how is he? Tsunade narrowed her eyes and said, so, you know Naruto-kun, huh? What's your name? The voice from behind the girl asked Haku, who is at the door. Tsunade looked and saw a black-haired woman, who said, guests, how can I help you ladies? Tsunade said, my name is Tsunade and this is Shizune, we were looking for Tazuna so we could inform him about Naruto. Haku bit her lip and said, Tsunade here is a world-famous medical ninja, Tsunami-san. Tsunade said, well, until recently I was the Goddamn Hokage of Konoha. Tsunami said, really, so what about Naruto? My little son Inari looks up to Naruto like a big brother and Haku here is. Haku interrupted her and said, just someone whose life was changed by him. Tsunade said, I see, do you mind if we come in and sit down? We have not really had a chance to rest in a few days since we left Konoha. Tsunami said, oh, of course. Please come in, sorry for my manners. We don't have many visitors anymore since Dad took over as the leader of the Land of Waves. Tsunade walked in with Shizune who was holding Taunton and sat down on the couch and Haku sat across from them in a chair while Tsunami to another chair and asked, so what is Naruto up to? Tsunade frowned and said, well, the Council of Konoha, after the recent defection of Uchiha Sasuke, at which time Naruto was injured, has decided to blame Naruto for Sasuke's defection, which is a lie, and Haku said they still blame him for the Kyuubi and wanted to get rid of him, right? Making both Tsunade and Shizune look at her. Shizune asked, how do you know about that? Tsunami sighed and said, that is something you would have to ask Naruto about yourselves, I am afraid to say. So, now that we know why he's actually being punished, what is his punishment? As she looked at Tsunade and Shizune. Tsunade looked at Shizune and sighed and said, the council gave me an ultimatum. I either had to have him banished in 10 days or they would have him executed. Because of the fact I only became Hokage because of him, I have defected with my assistant Shizune here along with one other. Haku asked, where is he at? Tsunade said, somewhere safe because he's still injured from his fight with Sasuke. Haku asked what could cause that kind of Chidori. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and said, you seem to have me at a disadvantage. How were you able to know what jutsu was used on him? Haku bit her lip and reached the bottom of her shirt and slowly pulled it up and both women's eyes widened and Haku said as she pulled it back down during the mission here Naruto-kun and I met and became friends even though I was the enemy. I was disguised as a hunter nin and was the tool of Zabuza-sama. We met in battle and I had defeated the Uchiha. Naruto-kun thought I had killed him and the Kyuubi's chakra leaked out. He attacked me covered with Kyuubi chakra and it had entered my body from the punches, then he stopped when my mask broke. Then, he realized who I was and recovered. At that exact moment, Kakashi went to kill Zabuza-sama and I took the hit for him. Somehow, the Kyuubi's chakra and my bloodline sealed the wound with ice and it started doing something to my skin that turned it into that blue scar you just saw. Tsunade frowned and said may I? As she motioned toward the scar. Haku frowns and nods and Tsunade moved over and did some hand signs and her hand glows and she scanned the scar and after several minutes she said strange. It appears to be exactly what Kyuubi did to help heal Naruto, are you sure the Kyuubi chakra was in you from the fight? Haku said yeah, my chakra control has always been good and I could detect foreign chakra from Jinjutsu. It was red and it burns. Naruto was the only one who knew I was still alive at the end of the battle because his team made him take care of mine and Zabuza-sama's body after they left. He took me to a small cave he found and stayed with me until I was nearly healed and his team had to leave. He talked to Tazuna and his family privately and asked could they watch me for him and they agreed. I have been here ever since. Shizune asked as she looked at Haku what exactly were you and Naruto? Haku narrowed her eyes and said friends. Shizune said alright, fine. I was just curious because, I mean, if he told you about Kyuubi, he must trust you a lot. Tsunade sighed as she looked at the clock and said, we need to leave soon, Shizune, if we are going to throw the ninjas off the trail. The male voice said just be sure that you keep that boy safe and, if you need anything from us, you got it. And all the woman looked and saw Izuna sitting at the window to the house and Tsunade asked, who are you? Izuna came in through the door and said the name's Tazuna and I am the newly elected leader of Wave Country after our Wave Lord decided to quit after his failure over Geto and his cowardliness to do anything about it. I got reports of a pair of ladies looking for me and where I live, so I came to see what was up. I have been here long enough to hear about what the council did. I will tell you this now. Wave Country will break our trade alliance with Konoha for doing this to our hero. Tsunade said well, I am glad to hear that because I have taken Naruto as my apprentice and will be teaching him everything I can to make Konoha regret everything they ever done to him. Izuna said then we are in an agreement. If you need anything for him, don't be afraid to send word. My people are eternally grateful to him. Tsunade smiled and said I'm glad someone sees him as a hero. I hate to say this, but we are leading several false leads as to where we are and if we are going to meet up with him when we are supposed to we must leave. Izuna said of course. Take care of him for us. Tsunami said please tell Naruto that Inari wants to see him. Haku said tell Naruto-kun, it's snowing now, but springs will come soon. He will know what it means. As she turned and walked up the stairs. After she was gone Tsunami said please forgive Haku. Her and Naruto have some sort of bond and he is a very touchy subject for her. Even I don't know all the details. Tsunade thought what haven't you told me, Naruto? And said it's alright, he's a touchy subject for us as well. It was a pleasure to meet you all and when we can we will see you all. Come on Shizune, let's go catch a boat to Water Country. Then flashback, Shizune saw Tsunade in thought and pulled out a scroll and wrote something. Tsunade blinked in dread. So how long are we going to let her follow us before we do something about it? Tsunade said I don't know Shizune. I wonder about that myself. For now I say we just sit and wait until the right time to find out. Don't want to piss off a possible ally or make any new enemies. But Naruto and Hinata. Naruto growled as he threw the book across the hut and said I can't take it any longer. My head hurts from trying to remember the bones, muscles and pressure points. Hinata sighed as she got up and picked the book up and walked over and sat down on the side of the bed Naruto was in and said with only a light stutter Naruto-kun, I know this is hard to handle, but just think, it might come in handy in the future. Also, Tsunade-sama wouldn't have us reading this without reason. Naruto closed his eyes and began to rub his temples when he felt Hinata hands over his and he opened his eyes and she said, just close your eyes and let me show you something I learned reading the next book. With a blush on her face. Naruto did and Hinata rubbed his temples while using chakra to massage them and Naruto said as the pain started to go away you know Hinata, you're not stuttering as much and you don't faint when near me anymore. Why is that? Hinata blushed redder and said I don't know. Naruto said you're lying. And Hinata asked what makes you think that? As she stopped moving her fingers. Naruto put his hand over hers and said I could feel your heartbeat when you were rubbing my temples and when you spoke before it was steady but when you said you didn't know it went faster. I read that the heart beats faster when you lie from the stress. If you don't want to tell me then say so, but please don't lie to me. As he moved her hands away. Hinata looked down and pushed her fingers together and Naruto frowned and looked away and Hinata thought oh no, Naruto-kun's getting mad at me, but if I tell him the truth, then he. Naruto sighed as he laid back on the bed and turned away from Hinata and she wanted to start crying and said I'm nervous about what you would think of me if I told you the truth. Naruto turned and looked at her and asked why. Hinata looked down and bit her lip and Naruto looked at her and asked, why are you nervous about what I think, why are you really here? I know that I am not being told everything. Why did you leave your family to be here with me? Hinata opened her mouth when a female voice said I swear, you're as dense as your father was. As Naruto looked over and saw another small frog. Naruto blinked and asked come again. The frog jumped over and sat down on Hinata's lap and said I just said you are just as dense as your father was. You can't tell a girl likes you unless she walks up to you and beats it into your head. Naruto blinked and blinked again and thought a girl likes me, does she mean Hinata likes me, is that why she always faints, and as his eyes slowly widened and Hinata got redder and redder the more he looked at her. He asked is this true Hinata, do you like me? Hinata swallowed and closed her eyes and nods and Naruto looked confused and asked why. Before she could say anything something clicked in Naruto's head and his head swiveled to look at the frog. Wait, what, you know who my father was? He asked as he looked at the frog. The frog said took you long enough, yes I know who your father was. He was the one who sealed the fox in you. Naruto's mind froze as he felt his entire world crash and thought oh god, Hinata's going to freak hearing about the Kyuubi and hate me like everyone else and does that mean my dad was the yondaime? As he closed his eyes and waited for Hinata to freak out while thinking the last part. Hinata just sat there and after several minutes Naruto slowly opened his eyes and saw Hinata looking at him and he asked, why are you not freaking out? The frog stuck out her tongue and hit Naruto between the eyes and said damn, why did you have to be so stupid? Let me spell it out for you. She already knew about the fox and she still likes you. She left her home to be with you. So wake up and tell the girl if you like her as well. Naruto swallowed as he saw Hinata looking down with her eyes closed and he thought, why is she acting like she wants to cry? Does she really like me that much? Do I like her? And he swallowed and said Hinata, if you like me please look at me. Hinata looked up slowly and looked at him and Naruto nods and said alright, since you say you like me, would you give me some time to figure out what I feel for you? Hinata glanced down and Naruto said it's not that I don't like you cause I do, it's just I don't know if it's just friends or more, I never really thought about you and me since we never really got to know each other. Hinata closed her eyes and Naruto asked, but if you're willing to be patient with me and help me to understand what I feel, then how about we get to know each other better and take it one day at a time? That way you can see if you like me as more than a friend and I can see if I like you more than a friend and if we both do then we can go from there. Are you okay with that? Hinata bit her lip and looked at him and nodded and Naruto, who said good, then how about you help me a little bit with his book? And then, we can talk a little bit. Hinata looked at the frog on her lap and Naruto said oh yeah, I forgot you were here. Making both the frog and Hinata to sweat drop and the frog used her tongue to slap him again and the frog said I am Ma. I came to tell you that Jiraiya has sent several scrolls for you to give to Tsunade when you meet with her, so when you leave make sure you have them. Now if you will excuse me, I have dinner to cook. As she hopped away. Naruto's sweat dropped and said why do women always hit me? Making Hinata giggle and Naruto to smile a small smile. The next day, Naruto smiled as he woke up and he was finally released from his bed by both Hinata and the elder toads who came by earlier. He walked outside and began to stretch as Hinata walked out behind him and he said you know, by the time we fell asleep last night, your stutter was nearly gone. I never knew you were a closet prankster. Hinata giggled and said softly after taking a calming breath yes, I learned it from watching you put a red shirt in with all the whites of my clan's laundry and it dyed them all shades of red and pink. Father nearly had a heart attack. Why? Asked Naruto. Because he had to wear pink underwear to a council meeting. Naruto laughed at that thought and Hinata saw Ma and Pa heading toward them. Naruto turned and saw them and asked what's up. Ah said as he hopped in front of Naruto as a toad summoner, you have responsibilities that you must live up to. One of them is learning the sage arts, which you are not ready for yet. But another is learning our fighting styles. For the rest of the time you are here, I will begin to teach you our Taijutsu style, while Ma here will take Hinata elsewhere because she has some things that she must learn. Naruto blinked and looked at Hinata who seemed confused and he asked what things. Ma said Hinata, by birthright you and us have a history together with another summons. Her mother had a contract with the Falcons and when they learned that she was here their leader has asked that she be brought before them to be tested to be their ally as we are yours. Naruto frowns a little and said it's alright, Hinata, just be yourself and don't get scared. It may sound scary, but I am sure someone as strong as you can do it. Just believe in yourself. I do. Faster than you could say snap. Hinata head bounced up and looked at Naruto with shock and she asked in a stutter, do you mean it? Naruto said yes, and don't stutter, it's cute and all, but when you talk normal, it makes you look lovelier. Hinata blushed red and said hi. As she turned and started to walk away and Ma said this way. Walking another way and Hinata turned red with embarrassment and began to follow her, and after they were gone Pa said, you have a way with words, kid. Naruto said, and you need to explain to me why I was never told my father was the Yondaime. As he looked down at the elder toad. Ah said Gambunta was your father's summon partner like Gamakichi is yours. He honored your father's request for you not to know until you were old enough to defend yourself from his enemies and ask all his children to follow the same rule, but Ma and I don't have such belief. We feel you should know and that's why we told you. Now follow me. As he hopped away with Naruto following him. They soon came to a clearing with many peaks, and Pa said now, I have seen and heard of your use of Kage Bunshin, and I ask you truthfully, did you know that whatever they learn goes back to the original when they are destroyed? Naruto blinked and shook his head no, and Pa said well they do. So, here is what we are going to do. I have 3 scrolls here with our taijutsu written in them. I want you to create 50 clones and have them each perform 1 kata each, but different ones. While they are doing that you will use chakra to run up and down those spikes over there while I correct the clones on their kata until they do it right at which time I will destroy them and the memory will go back to you. When they do I want you to come back and demonstrate the kata. If you do it right I will let you return to working on your chakra control. If you don't I will beat you in the head with my cane until you get it right. Once you have all 50 kata memorized we will then begin to spar. Now get to work. Naruto put his hands together and said Kage Bunshin no jutsu. And 100 clones appeared and Pa said your control is off, but it was expected. Very well, 50 of you work on chakra control with the original, well 50 of you do as you've been told. Now get to work before I beat you all. Each of them looked around and Pa jumped up and smacked the real Naruto in the head with his cane and he screamed OWWW. As he rubbed his face and Pa said you want some, come get some. Each of the clones began to get to work along with the original quickly and Pa smirks and thought works every time. With Hinata and Ma. Hinata was following Ma and asked why did you tell him I liked him? Ma glanced back at her and said, you were distracting not only yourself but him. If you and him are to endure what is to come, then you must both be focused. It is better to tell him now and get it out of the way instead of later. Hinata after a few minutes asked how did the Falcons know I was here? Ma said nothing as she stopped and looked up and said hello Talon. Hinata looked up and saw a 6 feet tall falcon who was looking at her and Talon said, I see you have brought her as I requested. Good. Now leave us before I eat you. Ma turned and left and Hinata looked scared a moment and Talon looked at her and said, you have nothing to fear of me, Lady Hinata. I am Talon, I was your mother's summon partner before her death. Hinata calmed her nerves and remembered what Naruto said and she said, it is an honor to meet you. Talon said it is good to see that you have lost your stutter mostly. I guess the toads are good for something after all. Hinata blinked and bit her lip and asked why do you talk about the toads as if they were? Talon said dinner. Naturally that is what they are to me and my kind. However, over the years they have earned my people's respect enough where we will only eat them if they are our enemies in battle or they disrespect us. We both have a common enemy in the snake who eats our eggs before our young can be born. Now you asked how we knew you were here. The falcons are the wing lords of the skies. All other birds are our subjects. They follow our orders and we help to protect them from our natural enemies. We have had them watch you since your birth and they have reported back to me. Hinata thought must mean snakes and others like them. And she said I see. So what is it you wish of me? Talon said I wish to offer you my family summoning. Not my people but my family. Hinata blinked and said I do not understand. Talon said I am not the lord of all falcon summons. I am but one of many falcons. I wish to make myself and my children a personal summon to you where you can summon us, but the strongest falcon you will be able to summon will be me. Hinata thought and asked why me? Talon said it was a request from your mother that you receive the honor. Not your sister or anyone else, but you. Hinata thought a moment and said I would like that. Talon said, not yet. You must prove yourself to me with a test. You must show me that you can achieve a task set before you with your own hands. I will take you to a river nearby not tainted by the toads where there are many fish. You must use your bare hands, not the gentle fist of the Hyuga clan or weapons of a ninja, but your bare hands, and catch me 50 fish and keep them all alive and fresh and bring them before me. If you can provide for me and my family then you will earn our respect and our contract. Do you agree? Hinata thought a moment and asked does this mean I will never sign another contract, should I be honored to receive it? Talon eyed her and said very wise of you to ask. No, this will be a personal summons to you however you may not sign the contract with our enemies, such as the snake. Doing so will result in the lose of our contract. If you wish should you ever be offered another contract summon me and I will tell you if we honor them or not. Now are you ready for the challenge? Hinata nodded and Talon turned and said climb on my back and use chakra to hold on. Hinata slowly climbed onto his back and when Talon felt her chakra holding onto him he took flight. When they landed in a clearing with a stream in it, Hinata got off and was a little dizzy. Talon said at least you didn't puke. Now there's the stream and remember, 50 fish, alive with your bare hands. Hinata nods and slowly walks toward the river and looked at the water and saw a few fish and thought, how am I going to do this? Maybe. As she walked around the clearing and saw a few vines. She ran up the tree and grabbed the vines and did this over and over until she had about 20 vines and she quickly began to tie them together making a huge net. After she finished making a net she looked at it and thought, even if I use this net then the fish might still get out. I guess I have no choice but to use my fish netting that's under my shirt. As she took her shirt off and took the netting off and got back dressed but cut the netting and tied it to the net she made. After she was done she walked to the river and slowly stepped inside and she waited until a fish came close by and she tried to quickly snatch it but the fish was too fast and swam away. She frowned and stood still and waited about 10 minutes for another fish to come by and this time she went slow and was able to slip both her hands under its belly before she grabbed it and slipped it into her net that was tied to her side. Over the next 3 hours she did this over and over again until she climbed out of the water and said there 50 of them. Talon looked at them and quickly ate them and said very good. Remember to have a fish with you as our payment when you summon any of us. Now take the scroll there on my foot and sign your name with blood and place your handprint on it. Hinata did as she was told and after being told the hand signs Talon said good, now let's take you back to those toads and continue whatever it is that big-breasted woman has you doing. Hinata giggled as she heard this and climbed on before they flew back. When she got there Talon flew away. Ma came and said follow me. The idiot needs your help again. When Hinata followed her back to the little hut she was sharing with Naruto she screamed Naruto-kun. As she saw all the whelps on his body but mostly on his head. He smiled and said ooh pretty. I see an angel. As he passed out after spinning around his feet. Hinata blushed and Ma sighed and said pa too rough on his training. As she hopped away. In Konoha, Danzo frowned as he stood outside of the Hokage office and thought, what are you up to, Tsunade? You have sealed the Hokage office as well as the hospital room to the Nine-Tails child. Why? He looked around as he saw several people look at the door before leaving and thought what are you playing at, Tsunade? Shutting down the village like this makes no sense unless as his eyes got wide. He walked over to Shizune's desk and pulled out a drawer and thought, you're trying to hide the boy. Or have you already had him leave the village and stalling us by distracting us away, giving him a head start? As he closed the empty drawer and left. A little later he was in his office and he said Root. And 4 Root members appeared. He said I want all Root operatives to search the village for Tsunade Senju and Naruto Uzumaki. I know they say he is still in the hospital room, but I believe he is no longer there. Go. And the 4 said hi. And left. Danzo got up and opened his filing cabinet and pulled out a folder and sat down to read it. Thinking, it appears that the boy has allies in Wave, Snow, T, and Suna. Wave and Suna won't be a problem for my men, but Snow and T country will be because they will have to take a ship and as it stands right now, I can't spend any money or risk compromising my operations. Jiraiya was giggling at the hot springs when he tensed a moment and saw a shinobi land on the roof of the hot spring and look around and thought that's a Root ninja. I recognize the way he dresses. It's too strict. Have you started to catch on Danzo? As he looked back into the hole and wrote down what he saw on a notepad. But Tsunade and Shizune. Tsunade smiled as she stretched in the VIP room of the ship they were on, leaving Spring Country, and said well I have to say, the kids got away with women, huh? Shizune shook her head and said I can't believe it. How can someone become the hero of 2 countries that he's never seen before and yet he's hated in his own? It makes no sense. Tsunade said I know, but that's the way it is. So are you ready for our next destination? As she shifted her eyes toward the closet on the other side of the room. Shizune saw this and said yes, but before we talk about this anymore, I need to use the restroom. As she got up and walked toward the restroom that was beside the closet. When she went inside she closed the door and pulled out a paper tag and put it on the shower wall that was the back of the closet and then on the side with another tag. She then flushed the toilet taking off her shirt and walked toward the dresser on the other side of the closet and said I need another shirt. My other one stinks. As she opens a dresser drawer and slipped on a new shirt and moving it down in speed she slapped a 3rd tag on the outside of the closet by the dresser and a cry of pain was heard inside the closet and Tsunade got up and walked over and opened the closet and said hello Haku. As she looked at the girl who was passed out on the floor of the closet. When Haku woke up she found herself tied to a chair and her body felt numb. She looked around and saw Shizune and Tsunade both sitting across from her. Tsunade asked so why have you been following us ever since we left Izuna house? Haku didn't say anything and Shizune sighed and said please tell us, we don't want to hurt you. Haku remained silent and Tsunade said very well. I can only assume you're an assassin waiting to kill Naruto, so I will just throw you overboard and let you drown. As she got up and moved toward the chair. Haku said wait. Tsunade stopped and said yes. Haku swallowed and said I wish to help Naruto-kun. He saved me and I wish to return the favor. Tsunade said then what's with the sneaking around and spying on us? Haku looked down and said I wanted to talk to him privately without anyone else listening. Shizune blinked and asked why. Haku said look, I have my reasons why. Just let it go. Since you know I am here can I just tag along with you until we meet him? If you want you can bind my chakra or whatever the hell you want, as long as you let me speak to him for 10 minutes privately when we meet. That's all I ask. As she looked at both women. Tsunade asked why is it you don't seem scared of what we could do to you? Haku blinked and said it takes more than what you got to scare me. When I started my period my master's Abusa-sama made me watch 3 women give birth. After that he took me to a bar wearing nothing but a bra and panties, a string of condom packets for a necklace, and a single senbon needle in my hair. Let's just say I walked out a virgin and never wanted to see another man ever again. Well every person in the bar lost what makes them different from me. Being in your presence is nothing compared to that. Both Tsunade and Shizune blinked and Tsunade said fine, you get your 10 minutes, but betray us or hurt him. For added effect, she zoomed in onto Haku's face and said I'll kill you. Haku said I wouldn't have it any other way. When Monday arrived Danzo was in the council chamber fuming and said look, how many times do I have to explain it to you all? Tsunade and Uzumaki are both gone from the village and not in the hospital room under protection or the Hokage office looking over the laws of Konoha to find a way to save the boy. The Ashi asked and what proof do you have to back up your claims Danzo? All we have is your words. We have checked the reports at the gates and no one has seen them leave, no one in the hospital saw the boy leave, even when you claimed before this that you had trusted people watching for him to leave. Are you saying the people you had watching are incompetent? Danzo frowned and was about to say something when the door to the council chambers opened and a man about 5'5" with brown hair and brown eyes, with a pair of glasses on wearing a pair of black pants and a brown shirt, making him look like a civilian entered the council chambers. Taharu asked what right do you have to enter the council chambers without our permission? The man said oh excuse me but I was ordered by Tsunade Senju, the god-aim Hokage of Konoha, to immediately come to the council chambers upon my arrival. I am Tsuruhishi, the financial accountant for the Fire Lord. Making everyone freeze. The Maru said wait, why are you here? The man reached into his robes making the shinobi in the room tense a moment and he pulled out a scroll and said as I stated before I am the financial accountant for the Fire Lord. The god-aim Hokage requested that the Fire Lord send me to do the audit of all of the council assets to ensure that an unbiased review can be done to determine the claims that someone has been stealing from the village treasury. I have already sent my armed escort to seize all of your financial records from the bank in Konoha, as well as all financial books from the record office, as well as the financial registers of each of the businesses in Konoha. At this Danzo, Kaharu and Homura were all three sweating a little. The Ashi said yes we were expecting an auditor to begin today and I for one am glad to see the god-aim Hokage has given us an unbiased auditor since the Hyuga clan has already discovered when we were given the Uchiha accounts being the closet's relatives in Konoha that a large amount of assets were missing. Sura said I was already aware of the legal law pertaining to the Uchiha and the Senju assets as well as the Hyuga clan taking possession of the account after Sasuke Uchiha defected from the village. The civilian council member said he did not defect, he was forced to leave by the Kyuubi brat. Sura said that is your decision how you wish to claim as I have no authority over anything but this audit to deal with in my investigation, however, as of the moment I was given my orders from the Fire Lord. The legal standpoint is that Uchiha Sasuke defected from the village joining the Sound Village and has been added to the bingo book as such as a A-rank missing nin to be killed on sight due to the fact he has used an assassination jutsu on, at the time, a loyal Leaf Shinobi, as well as joining a known enemy of the Leaf and the Sand Village. Taharu said this is an outrage. Who dared to mark Sasuke Uchiha as an A-rank missing nin to be killed on sight? Sura pushed his glasses up and said that would be the god-aim Kazekage. Making several people flinch. Danzo said I was not aware Suna had already elected a new Kazekage. Sura said from what I understand there is a great many things you are not aware of. Now, since I am a busy man I am sure this council is as well I will begin my audit and make this as painless as possible. I shall first start off with the people who have the most access to the funds in questions and from my understanding that is the advisors, Kaharu, Hamaru, and then after those two I will go with Danzo, then the clans and lastly the civilian members of the council to determine if funds are actually missing and if so which parties are involved. The Ashi asked how long will it take for this investigation to be finished. Sura said I shall be finished by the time the Fire Lord arrives next week. Danzo asked how will you be able to do the entire council in that short of a period. Sura said simple. I am but the chief investigator in this matter. My 200 assistants that came with me will be aiding me and reporting to me what they discovered so that I may turn the findings over to the Fire Lord who will then report those findings to the Hokage. Now if you do not mind, would Kaharu and Himaru lead me to each of their land holdings and their financial records so I may begin. Kaharu and Himaru frowned but stood up and said this meeting is adjourned for now. As they both left with Sura. Naruto blinked as the smoke cleared away as he held Hinata's hand as the two toads that they stood on top of transported them away from where they had been the last few days. Naruto jumped off the toad's head as did Hinata, and Naruto said, "Thanks for bringing us here, but are you sure this is where we are supposed to meet Tsunade-bachan?" As he looked at the two toads. One croaked and said yes, this is the agreed upon location. Naruto nods and said alright, I guess you both can go back then, and thank you for everything. Both toads went up in smoke, and Naruto looked around and asked now what? Hinata pushed her fingers together and said I think we should look around, but not straight far away to see if we can find them or find a good place to set up camp. Naruto glanced at Hinata and said alright. That sounds like a good idea. Let's go. As he jumped into the trees and Hinata slowly began to follow. About an hour later Naruto and Hinata were setting up camp near a river when a twig snapped and Naruto turned and blinked again and asked Haku. As he laid eyes on said girl. Haku smiled and said hello Naruto-kun. How are you doing? Naruto glanced around and asked what are you doing here Haku? The voice said she came here to see Yugaki. Causing Naruto to look and see Tsunade and Shizune walk out the woods a few steps behind Haku. Hinata stood up glancing at Haku and Naruto and then to Tsunade and said it's good to see you again Tsunade-sama. Tsunade raised an eyebrow and asked what, no stutter. Hinata blushed and said I have had a chance to get better. Naruto said yeah, she got better after I learned she cared for me. And Haku frowned a moment and Shizune said okay Haku, you can talk to him like we agreed in private. Causing everyone to first look at Shizune and then at Haku who nods and walked over and said, can you follow me a moment Naruto-kun? I would like to talk to you in private. As she walked toward the woods behind the camp Naruto and Hinata first started to make. Naruto glanced around and began to follow her and Hinata looked down and after they were gone, Tsunade put her hand on Hinata's shoulder and whispered is everything alright? Hinata smiled a little and said he knows how I feel and we agreed to go slow and see if he also has feelings besides friendship for me. Tsunade nods and Hinata said this was sent to you through the toads from Jiraiya-sama, Tsunade-sama. As she pulled out several scrolls. Tsunade took them and opened them and her eyes got wide a moment after checking them all and thought you old pervert. This will help greatly. In the woods Haku stopped and before Naruto knew it he was pressed up against a tree with Haku kissing him deeply on the lips. After a few seconds she pulled back looking at him and Naruto quickly grabbed her and kissed her on the lips as well after slamming her against a tree. Once he broke the kiss he stepped back and said I missed you Haku. Haku smiled and held his hand and said I missed you as well Naruto-kun. How are you? As a pair of fox ears appeared on top of her head and a tail formed out of her tailbone. Naruto saw this and a tail formed out of his tailbone and had a pair of fox ears appear on his head and he asked so how did you get here? Haku said Tsunade-sama came by and told Tazuna all about what happened to you and about her leaving so after she left I began to follow her but my stealth skills are not as good as yours are and she was able to detect me. Naruto smiled and said I am glad you're here. I need you right now with everything that has happened. Haku asked what is with that girl. Naruto sighed as he leaned against a tree and said she likes me and apparently has for a long time but I ignored her feelings believing that no one cared for me. Haku saw the sad look on Naruto's face and reached her hand up and rubbed the whisker marks on his face, causing him to purr a little, and she asked do you care for her? Naruto said in a way yes. It's different than me and you. We both understood each other because of our past, and Hinata is like us in a way also. Most of her family thinks of her as weak and have treated her badly, not as bad as we have seen, but as Haku placed a finger on his lip. She said I understand. You're confused about it all. The only love you know of is what you and I have. Naruto sighs as he falls down to his knees and sits on his butt with his knees against his chest and nods as he said yeah. I felt Jiji was like a grandfather growing up but then I learned that he lied to me about Kyuubi and I felt hurt. It made me start to doubt all the things he done for me growing up like was he actually caring for me or was he just making sure I was loyal to him and the village so I wouldn't let Kyuubi out which also made me question everyone else who had ever done something nice for me and I forgot what it felt like to truly care for anyone including myself until I met you. Haku sat down beside him and put her arm over his shoulder and asked, and do you think the others that are here are like that? Naruto was silent for several minutes and said no. I trust them. Tsunade's voice came through the clearing and said that's good Brad, since we care for you as well, but I think you have something you need to tell us. As she pointed toward the ears and tails on each of them, and Naruto looked up seeing Tsunade, who was looking at him with question, Shizune with a bit of womanly cuddly emotion, and a shell-shocked Hinata. Naruto sighed as he closed his eyes and thought why me? Naruto glanced at Haku who nods her head slightly and he said alright. I guess I can tell you all about what's going on with these. As he motioned toward his ears and tail. Tsunade said that would be good. Haku said it's a binding contract with Kyuubi. Making everyone but Naruto blink. Shizune asked what do you mean? Haku said you already know how I took a Chidori to the chest right? Well right before that Naruto had momentarily weakened his seal in anger, thinking that I had killed Sasuke during our fight and Kyuubi chakra repaired the damage I had did to Naruto during our fight. Tsunade said I take it Naruto didn't know who you were at the time since I remember reading that you were a masked enemy in Kakashi report. Haku nods and Naruto said anyways when I broke her mask before she took the Chidori we talked and she confessed she wished we could have met somewhere else, then we did so we could have been together more, then we had as he turned a little red with a blush. Haku said to put it simply I am not a virgin any longer. When we first met we recognized each other's pain and comforted each other and talked about our past and we both wanted to be held by someone who could understand us. Naruto sighed and said anyways after she took the Chidori she had passed out from the pain and Kakashi put her body on the ground and I ran to it ignoring the mission and everything else and a swirl of flames appeared between Naruto and Haku, making Tsunade, Hinata and Shizune to jump back a little. When the flames died down there was a girl about the same age as Haku with red hair and red eyes and a fox tail and a fox ears and the girl said, you both take too damn long to talk kids. To answer all questions I will be brief. You know who I am so let's skip all that and get to the exact details. Since he used my chakra to fight the girl here I was able to talk to him briefly in his mind. I know that damn seal would normally kill me when the kid here dies, so I have no plans to go out like that, so I made a deal. Tsunade asked what kind of deal Kyuubi. Kyuubi said relax Senju, I have no plans to attack you or the others here. Hell I did not have plans to attack Konoha had Madara not forced me to, but that's besides the point. The deal was simple. In exchange for saving the girl's life I would receive a blood clone body like I am in now with exactly one tail of power that I can use with the kid's permission between now and the time he dies. When he dies I am freed with that clone body and one tail of chakra and allowed to go about my life as long as I never attack any of his precious people. Shizune asked why exactly do they have fox tails and ears? Kyuubi said oh those. That was a bloodline I gave both. It allows regeneration which repairs damage at an incredible rate as you've seen from the lightning attack they both received, as well as make it where neither can die of old age, since the damage done to the human body that makes it age is instantly repaired. Once they hit the age of I would saw 22 they won't ever look any older. They can still be killed, but it's much harder, chakra boost which it doesn't exactly increase the amount of chakra they have, it just makes it where their chakra is more potent than it used to be. Take the kid's use of Kagebunshin. The same amount of chakra that it took to make 100 Kagebunshin now can make 400. As his control increases then the more potent his chakra will become, so eventually that same amount of chakra to make 100 could make 1000 or more, nearly prehensile tail, which have scent markers in the end, so they can either find each other or anyone they want, as long as they don't take a bath or a few days pass without touching the person, as well as a chakra network that is built into their own, and parabolic ears which make it where with training they can hear whispers up to about a mile away, though I know the kid hardly uses them. Hinata asked are you both still together? As she pushed her fingers together, Naruto started to open his mouth and Kyuubi said they have to be. They're mates. Haku can't be with anyone else or she will feel incredible guilt which will cause her to die from depression where her spirit will just give up living, causing her body to just shut down and the kid here is the same way however he can get more mates if he chooses to, but he has to have the approval of his other mates so if you want to be with him then you have to have both his and her approval and then to make it fair to the kid so he won't be hurt with losing you as time passes by I will give you the same bloodline that I gave them both. Tsunade asked what do you get out of them living longer Kyuubi? Kyuubi smirked and said smart Senju. To answer your question. I am probably no stronger than a high chunin to low jounin right now, so if all of you work together you could kill this body no problem and then I would be forced back into the seal. What I get out of the kid having such a long life is several things. The first, company. I have lived a very long time and I will continue to live a very long time. As long as the kid here or his family live I will have people I can talk to and make friends with. The second thing is the world will forget the great and terrible Kyuubi no Kitsune. I will be able to when I finally get my full freedom to start a new life under a new name and not worry about power-hungry humans trying to control me or use me. The last thing I get is protection. Right now Madara can't control me because I am already under the kid's control. If I was freed right now while he still lives, then Madara can come for me and try to use me as a weapon again like he did against your grandfather as well as he did when he sent me to destroy Konoha. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and asked Madara Uchiha, huh? How exactly is he still alive then? Kyuubi shrugged and said beats me human. I know it has something to do with his brother's eyes he took, but what I do not know. Tsunade seemed to think a moment and asked what would happen to Haku if Naruto would die. Ayubi said she would live long enough to take care of her kids if she had any, and then after they could take care of themselves, she would fall into depression and die. When Kitsune mate we mate for life and we do not like to live without our mates. Hinata bit her lip and asked, is this why you didn't want to agree to be with me when I asked? Because you needed to talk to her. As she shot a look at Haku. Naruto said partially. What I told you was also true. I honestly had not thought about you in that way before, so I wanted to get to know you better, which I have been doing. As for you getting mad at Haku, then you have to realize something. I care for her. I know your family life was bad. Haku was nearly just as bad. Her mother had a bloodline in the land of mist and she hid it so she could live. Her own father, when he found out, murdered her mother, and Haku had to kill her own father as well as a mob he had gathered to save her own life. She then had to live on the streets, hated and despised just as I was. Haku understands me better than anyone else could because she knows the pain of being betrayed by those you trust and also the pain others can cause from hating you because you're different. I admit that I have some feeling for you, Hinata, but I don't know if they are love or friendship, but if you hate Haku, then I can tell you the answer now. I can't live without her, nor can she live without me. Even without the bond Kyuubi made for us, I would still feel the same. Tsunade asked, what other effects would your bloodline have on a person? Like Hinata here. Kyuubi said, if you mean, will it affect her bloodline, then no. With enough time though I can do this. As she snapped her finger and Naruto grabbed his stomach in pain and it started to sleet in the air. As everyone tensed and Naruto calmed down, a few seconds later it quit sleeting and Haku said, you gave him my bloodline. Kyuubi said, yeah, since I had to mess with your DNA structure while I was healing you and giving you my bloodline, I copied your original structure in case I messed up and had to fix it, and while I was bored inside the kit here I examined your DNA and figured out what was the part that gave you the ability to control ice. Now with training the kid can do it just like you do. Tsunade blinked and Hinata asked, and you could do that with my bloodline, give it to him. Kyuubi said, not just him, both of them. I won't make one member of the kid's pack stronger than another and I will do everything I can to make him the strongest in his pack. Tsunade said, so he could be your alpha. Kyuubi said Iksa as she stopped herself. Tsunade smirked and said, I see. Naruto blinked and asked, you see what, Bachin? Tsunade said, oh, I just figured out that the real reason the fox here is helping you is mostly what she has been saying, but there is another reason. Remember how she said she wouldn't have to be alone? Naruto nods and Tsunade said, and remember she said that Haku and you couldn't be without the other. Naruto nods again and Haku eyes looked at Kyuubi and Shizune said, you don't mean. Naruto asked, what are you all talking about? Tsunade said, think about it, Naruto. Since she gave you her bloodline, that means the rules that affect you affect her. She can't cheat on her mate or she would die from depression just as Haku would. She also can't live without her mate unless she had children, which I doubt, so that means she doesn't have one. She's alone and so she is making you like her so that way you can be her mate. Am I right, Kyuubi? She wants you to be stronger so she gives you Haku bloodline and she will make you stronger, then she will, because those who follow animal instincts like to have a strong male to protect them, and Kyuubi said she's using you to protect herself. Naruto looked at Kyuubi who was glaring at Tsunade and Haku said, it's true, isn't it? Kyuubi turned from looking at Tsunade and walked over and moved Haku hair away from her neck and said, remember this, what did I tell you it was? Haku said, a mate mark. Naruto blinked and said, but you told me that it was how you had to save her life and that I had to test it on you till you tricked me. Kyuubi said, I'm a trickster at heart, kid, it's what I do. Naruto asked, but why didn't you tell me the truth? Kyuubi sighed and said, I wanted to earn your approval and love. Earning your mark through trickery is okay, but actually having your heart is better. Especially after all the pain I caused you. Naruto rubbed his temples and said, I see, I need to think about it, Kyu. Kyu nods and Tsunade asked, you said that your bloodline makes it where they won't age, what if Naruto wanted an older woman, will it reverse her aging and can you activate dormant bloodlines? Kyu said, yeah, it would reverse your aging back to that of 22 and I might be able to activate your bloodline, but I would take time and might take some trial and errors which would be painful, but as long as I had the original DNA structure, it won't be too hard. Naruto blinked and asked, you also, Bachin? Tsunade said, no, Naruto, not me. At least not the way you're thinking. I see you as a little brother or a grandson and that is all I will ever see you as, but I was thinking if I could give you my bloodline, that would make you stronger, so I was just asking. Besides, as you get older you may find older women you like and want to know what effects all this has on them. Naruto said, I suppose you're right. I didn't think about it like that. Kyuubi said, not that I don't like the idea of giving the kid your bloodline, but to do so I would have to have a sample of your blood inside the kid's body and to get it, he would have to mark you. Tsunade smirked and said, Kyuubi. I am a medic nin, one who has looked into bloodline theft on several occasions and I can tell you that getting my blood inside of him will not be a problem as well as not getting that mark. Kyuubi said, whatever. Is that all you need of me at this time? I am tired and want to go back and rest. Tsunade said, I have no more questions. Kyuubi looked around and disappeared in a swirl of flames, and Tsunade said, well, that was all fun and good, but we got other things to worry about for now. Since Naruto and Hinata already got our camp set up, let's begin training. All of us. As she looked around and saw Shizune flinch. When Naruto and Hinata returned to camp, Naruto asked, so what will you be training us to do? Tsunade said, the first thing I need to do is get your chakra control, Naruto. That has and will always be your greatest weakness. For you, Hinata, we need to work on your stamina and chakra reserves. And Haku, I have no idea. Haku said, I am mostly the same as Hinata here, needing my reserves and stamina increased. Tsunade smiled and said, good, the first exercise you will be doing is water walking on your hands. It's just like regular water walking, but using your hands instead of your feet. Too much and you blow off, not enough and you sink. Shizune, if you would. Shizune sighed as she flipped backwards and landed on the water on her hands and began to walk across the river and back several times before flipping upright. Naruto said, alright. As he put his hands together and said, Tajuu Kajibunshin no Jutsu. As the entire clearing was covered in shadow clones and they all ran toward the river and started to try it different ways. Each of the women were gaping a little and Tsunade asked, what are you doing, Naruto? Naruto turned and said, I learned while I was training with the toads that anything a Kajibunshin learns when dispelled would go back to the original. Apparently it's how my father did his paperwork as Hokage. As he gave a small glare at Tsunade. Tsunade blinked and said, so you know about your father now, huh? Naruto nods and Tsunade said, Jiraiya told me on the way back when you found me who you were, and he told me that your father wanted you to wait until you were a Jounin to learn the truth to protect you from his enemies. I didn't like it, but I agreed since Akatsuki are after you. Naruto said, whatever. In a dead voice that sent chills down each of the women present because of how sad it was as Naruto himself began to do the exercise. Tsunade, after shaking off the feeling, said, well, what are you waiting for? Causing Hinata and Haku to also go and begin to try the exercise. Once they had began, Tsunade turned to Shizune and said, now while they work on that, you and I are going to go over the scrolls Jiraiya gave us and prepare for our trip tomorrow. As she thought, I am sorry for not telling you, Naruto, but I thought it was for your own good. Damn, why didn't I ever think about using Kajibunshin? As Naruto climbed out of the water, Naruto thought, at least this way I will get stronger, and when I get strong enough I can begin that sage training I was promised, though I wish people would quit keeping secrets from me because I hate it. And who was my mother? What should I do about Haku, Hinata, and Kyuubi? Downstream a little from the real Naruto, Hinata was glaring at Haku, and Haku finally said as she stood on her hands, trying to get comfortable with it before moving, if you want to talk about it, then do so. Don't give me those hateful looks. Hinata bit her lip as she also stood on her hands trying to take her first hand step and said, why did he agree to be with you when not only were you the enemy but also a stranger when I have known him years and he's never even thought of me? Haku looked at Hinata and said, it's because I saw him as him. Not what other people saw him as but who he truly is. Tell me, who is he to you? Hinata said, he's strong, kind, he never gives up no matter how often he gets knocked down. Haku interrupted her and said, and that is why he chose me instead of you. You don't see him as him. You see him as everything you want to be. Yes, he's strong-willed, but he's emotionally weak. He's kind, but he also is vengeful. You think he never gives up, and when it counts he doesn't, but when he's all alone when no one is around, he wishes to give up to end the pain of loneliness. I see him as who he truly is, not who I want him to be or who I think he is. That is why he is with me. He doesn't want someone he has to support or someone to support him. He wants someone who will stand beside him not in just the good times but the bad as well. Hinata lost her concentration and fell into the water, and Haku flipped herself onto her feet and offered her hand to Hinata and said, you know, if we fight over him, he is the one who will be hurting over it, which will hurt us both. If you want to be with him and truly care for him, then open your eyes and not just see his strength but also his weaknesses. Be there for him when he's lonely and be his pillar of strength when he needs it, since I heard he is yours. Do that and I will accept you to be with him also because truthfully, he needs all the love he can get. My life was bad, and I can guess so was yours, but at least we had some good times before the bad. We at least knew the love of a parent and what it's like to be friends, he never did. Hinata looked at Haku with water dripping down her face, and she looked at the outstretched hand and bit her lip before she reached out and took it as Haku pulled her up, but when Hinata got to her feet, Hinata got right in Haku's face still holding that hand and said, if you hurt him, I will kill you. As she held up her glowing hand ready to juke Haku. Haku held up her other hand having made one hand seals and senbon needles formed in her hand and said, and the same to you. As they released each other they both got back to work on the chakra control exercise. The clones of Naruto who were near enough to hear their talking thought scary. A few hours later when the girls were nearly out of chakra and Naruto was running out of clones, Tsunade said, alright. That's enough for today on chakra control. I want you each to run 20 laps around this clearing," and then began to punch and kick a tree 100 times with each leg and arm. Naruto said alright Bachin. As he began to run the laps, ignoring the groans from the two girls whose heart he held. It was dark by the time the girls had finished and Naruto had already gathered fish for them all to eat. When they were eating, Naruto asked, "I have been wondering. Where exactly are we and why are we here?" Tsunade saw everyone but Shizune looking at her, and Tsunade said, "We are currently in the land once known as Whirlpool Country, it is now part of Lightning Country." At this, Naruto and Hinata froze and Hinata stuttered, "Lightning, but why here?" As she looked around scared. Tsunade bit her lip a moment and said, "We are going to meet the Lightning Lord tomorrow." Naruto asked in a neutral voice why. Tsunade said because his name is Ichigo Uzumaki, brother to Kushina Uzumaki, your mother. Making everyone including Shizune wide-eyed. Naruto stuttered out, I have an uncle." Tsunade said, "I only found out after we left Konoha though." Shizune said, "So that was what was in the scroll you refused to let me read. Wasn't it?" Tsunade sighed and said yes. Apparently the third Hokage had discovered who he was after the Cloud Indecent, but because of that he could not do anything without taking the chance of war between the two countries. Naruto asked, "So did he know about me?" Tsunade said he should now. "I sent a message to him while we were traveling the past few days." Hinata asked, but what about me? "You know about Cloud wanting my bloodline." Tsunade said, "Relax. I have already prepared for everything. Just wait until tomorrow and don't worry." "Okay." Hinata fidgeted, but nods, and Naruto said, "Now how am I supposed to sleep?" as he slumped forward, thanks to the medical jutsu Shizune had just used on him. As he slumped to the ground, Haku asked, "Why did you do that?" as she got ready to fight. Tsunade snickered and said, "Relax. The Gaki was already asking how was he going to sleep, and I know him enough to know he will worry himself all night until he's too tired to stay awake. Now he will get a good night's sleep before he meets his uncle." Hinata asked, "But what if his uncle doesn't want him?" Tsunade smiled sadly and said, "That's not exactly the problem. I am more worried he wants him too much. Now get you some sleep, Shizune and I will take watch tonight. I will take first watch, Shizune will take second watch, so get some sleep." Making the other three women confused but followed orders. The next day Naruto was bouncing on his feet as they walked toward their destination. About noon they saw a huge castle and Naruto said, "So my uncle lives here?" as he looked at it as they approached. Tsunade said yes. As she also looked at the castle and thought, "I hope I made the right decision." As they got within a mile of the gate, 10 samurai walked toward them and one in red armor said, "Halt, state your name and reason for coming here." Tsunade said, "I am Tsunade Senju, former Godame Hokage of Konoha, and these are my apprentices Hinata, Shizune, Haku, and Naruto. I sent a message to Lord Uzumaki requesting an audience concerning the fate of his sister's child." The one in red armor said, "I see. Yes, we have been expecting you, but your letter only indicated 3 apprentices." Naruto said, "That's because she did not know at the time about my fiancé Haku. I am Naruto Uzumaki." Before Tsunade had a chance to say anything and Haku got red face and thought, "Fiancé, well, I guess that's alright considering as far as Kyuubi is concerned I am his wife, though he should have talked it over with me, but I accepted long ago anyways." Hinata thought sadly, "Fiancé." The red armor samurai looked at Naruto and said, "You look nothing like the lord or his sister." Naruto said, "Truthfully, I never knew what my mother looked like. I took all my looks after my father Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha." Making a few of the samurai flinch. The red armor samurai looked Naruto for several minutes and asked, "Which one do you hold, boy?" Making Tsunade and Shizune wide-eyed and Naruto asked, "Which what?" The man said, "Don't play games, boy. I met the Yondaime and while I do admit you do look exactly like him, I also know if you are telling the truth, then neither of your parents had whiskers, so that means you had to get them from somewhere, and since we have 2 of our own in this country, I am more than aware of what that means, so I ask you again, which do you have, Jinchuriki?" Making Naruto flinch. Naruto said, "Kyuubi." The man said, "Very well, Tsunade Senju, you and your apprentices here will wait while I take the boy here to meet his lordship. I give you my word of honor, as long as the boy is who he claims to be, then no harm shall befall you or him. The rest of you stay here and guard these women and you will follow me." As he looked at Naruto. Naruto glanced at Tsunade who closed her eyes and nods, and he began to walk forward but stopped and said, "If anything happens to any of my precious people, I will let Kyuubi free to kill you." Making a few flinch. Tsunade smirked to herself and thought, "Clever bluff, Naruto. You can release Kyuubi, but she's only in a human body." The man in red armor laughed and said, "Perhaps you are an Uzumaki after all. Come." As he led Naruto toward the castle. As they walked toward the castle, Naruto was fidgeting a little and the guard asked, "Why are you fidgeting?" Naruto put his hands behind his head and looked at the sky to calm himself and said, "I never knew who my parents were until I got banished from Konoha. I didn't even know I had any living relatives until yesterday, and I've been an orphan my entire life, so I have no idea how I should act or if he will even accept me as family." "Who are you anyways?" The man said, "I am Captain Renji." captain of his lordship personal guard. Naruto nods and said what's my uncle like? Renji said you will have to see for yourself, we are here. As Renji opened a huge set of doors and Naruto looked inside. As Naruto looked inside he saw what looked like a giant throne room and Naruto thought looks a little like Yuki's throne room. I wonder how she is doing. As he looked around some more and saw several people leaving the room and Renji began to walk down the red carpet. Naruto followed and he soon saw an outline of a person sitting in a throne with an empty seat beside him, but because of the lighting, Naruto could not see any details of the person. Renji said your lordship, allow me to introduce to you the boy who claims to be Naruto Uzumaki, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto said what do you mean claim to be? I am Naruto Uzumaki and I do have Kyuubi inside of me. The commanding male voice said silence. Startling Naruto. Naruto frowned and crossed his arms and looked up at the seat where the person was sitting. The voice Naruto realized was coming from the seat said, what proof do you have to claim to be the son of Kushina Uzumaki? Naruto bit his lip and thought of course they want some kind of proof, I just walk in without hardly any warning and claim to be the son of some woman I never heard of until yesterday. Maybe telling the truth will work. And said look, I don't know who she was or anything. All my life I have been an orphan. I was told over and over again that my parents either abandoned me, they were dead or missing. I was hated by my home village until about 9 months ago, without ever knowing why the hell I was hated, until one of my academy instructors tricked me into doing something, and then he tried to kill me, but not before telling me about Kyuubi, which is why I was hated. Then recently my teammate abandoned the village and shoved a Chidori through my chest, and the council told Tsunade Bachin that either she banished me or I would be executed. She then talked to Iro-sanin, and he had the toads take me to their home to finish healing, and they told me my father was the Yondaime Hokage. They didn't tell me who my mother was, and I still did not know until yesterday when the toads brought me to where Tsunade Bachin was, and she had told me that we were coming here to meet some guy named Ichigo Uzumaki, the brother to Kushina Uzumaki, my mother. I never heard of her or this Ichigo guy before so I don't know if it's true or not. Truthfully with all the other shit that's going on in my life at the moment I don't have time to even worry about it. By this time Naruto had began to pace back and forward completely lost in his own thoughts as he kept on talking never even noticing Renji or the man on the throne looking at him. Kyuubi said only you could get yourself into these situations. First the girls and now this. How do you do it kid? Naruto rubbed his head and said damn it Kyuubi, what a mess, I can't prove shit because I don't know if it's true or not. Bachin got all my hopes up yesterday saying I had an uncle and I may or may not. I don't know and I got some ego-tripping dipshit here who reminds me of Yuki's uncle before I kicked his ass acting all high and mighty, who probably got some big stupid plan to keep me from even meeting this guy Ichigo, so that way he could probably take over the country in some kind of ultra fucked up emo plan where he finally goes in for the kill, only to forget he left all his weapons on the table in his office and gets his ass killed. Can't I even get a break? As Naruto looked back at the throne. Naruto blinked and asked what? Renji said you do know you said all that out loud right? Naruto palmed his face and said damn it Kyuubi, why did you have to distract me and why didn't you tell me I was talking out loud? Naruto face scrunched up as Kyuubi said it was fun to watch and listen to. Naruto shook his head and said damn vixen, give her an inch and she runs your life. As he looked up at the throne and said alright, it's obvious I don't know shit about this Kushina lady. I don't know if she was my mother or not and I don't know what happened to her after I was born. All I know is what I've been told. I figure you're probably some asshole just like the Fire Lord is who has to meet everyone before they can see the actual Fire Lord to see if they are important enough. Gigi took me to see him enough times when I was younger to know that much about this political crap, so how about you tell me what you want? All I have in the world is what's on me and the woman who are with me. I don't have any picture or relics. I don't have any special jutsu besides Kuchius no Jutsu, Rasengan, Kagebunshin no Jutsu, Sexy no Jutsu, Harem Jutsu, Henge, and Replacement. I know a few chakra exercise and I just learned the Sage Taijutsu. If any of those will work as proof then fine, but if not then I guess we're both shit out of luck. I could use some of Kyuubi chakra if that will prove anything, but I doubt it. Silence fell over the room for a good minute and Naruto had his hands on his hips and finally asked, are you going to say anything, because if you're not then can I see this Ichigo guy? I want to find out if this Kushina lady really was my mother and if so, then ask if he knows what happened to her. If not then let me go back to Bachin and the others and we can get the hell out of here. Renji finally said do you wish for me to kill him sir? As he grabbed the hilt of his sword, Naruto tensed and looked at Renji and finally laughter came from the throne and said no, don't kill him. I think I rather kiss him. Naruto paled and said oh god, another gay pedophile. Why me? Please tell me you don't have 50-foot-long snakes ready to eat me like the last guy, because I know from experience that I can blow them up from the inside with Kagebunshin. As he started looking around the room for a way out. Laughter could be heard as the guy on the throne fell down the stairs holding his side as Naruto got his first look at the guy who stood about 5'10" with red hair with gray in it and he had green eyes and the guy said still holding his side, if you are who you claim to be, then you may have your father's looks, but you definitely have your mother's attitude. Only she would have the balls to tell a feudal lord Hess a stuck-up asshole and not give a fuck. As he slowly stood up catching his breath, he said allow me to introduce myself. I am Ichigo Uzumaki. As he straightened his cloths, Naruto blinked and blinked again and said oops. As he rubbed the back of his head, Ichigo glanced at Renji and nods and Naruto didn't see it and suddenly he saw Renji blur out of the corner of his eye and Naruto felt a blade cross against the side of his neck, drawing a tiny line of blood, but suddenly stopped. Naruto acting on instinct jumped back and he held his neck and quickly drew a kunai and asked what the hell. Renji looked at the blade and said here's your sword back sir. As he handed the blade back to Ichigo. Ichigo looked at it a moment as he took it back and said as he looked up at Naruto, you were telling the truth. You really are Kushina's son. Naruto blinked and asked huh. Ichigo said leave us. As Renji nods and leaves the room. Once he was gone Ichigo held the sword in his hand and said, this sword has been in our family for over 400 years. One of our ancestors was a powerful warrior however he was accident prone and kept cutting himself with his own blade, so his wife put seals on it that made it where the blade could never cut his body once it hit his blood, only giving him small paper cuts to make him learn not to cut himself. Ever since then this blade is passed down from generation to generation, always being given to a family member to learn to use a sword without killing themselves. It's one of the only relics of our family left to survive the fall of Whirlpool Country. It is impossible for this blade to kill an Uzumaki. I had Renji wait until you were distracted and try to cut off your head with a blade so you couldn't protect yourself with some sort of jutsu. If you had not been an Uzumaki then you would have been dead. You have to understand I needed some way to prove you were who you claimed to be since I am a feudal lord. I am glad that you're alive nephew. Naruto smiled a small smile and Ichigo said so, how about you and I spend the rest of the day talking and I will have my guards take your lady friends to a guest room to rest for the day. I want to hear all about your life, both good and bad, and I would like to tell you about our family. Naruto said I would like that. Ichigo said good, guards. Just then several samurai burst into the room and Ichigo said, please escort the ladies outside into the guest wing and see to it they have plenty to eat and drink as well as anything else they need. Tell them that my nephew and I will see them tomorrow sometime. Please have the kitchen prepare us a meal. Tell me, do you like ramen? Naruto blinked and smiled a big smile and said it's the food of the gods. Ichigo said tell the kitchen to fix the ramen feast for us. The guards all groaned and left. Ichigo asked so, tell me about your life. Naruto swallowed and said well. Outside Tsunade was getting impatient when several guards came walking toward them and one said please escort the ladies inside to the guest quarters. His lordship said him and his nephew will speak to them tomorrow. Tsunade smiled and thought so things worked out good. As they were led inside. The following morning the sun was just rising into the air and the birds began to chirp when a knock was heard on the door to the guest room Tsunade had been given for the night, causing Tsunade to groan as she tried to cover her head to block out the noise. After a few minutes she gave up and began to get dressed. After about 10 minutes from the first knock to all the other random knocking Tsunade finally dressed in her normal cloths, answered the door and Renji stood there and said, his lordship would like to speak with you privately Lady Tsunade. Tsunade nods and said let me grab my shoes. As she slipped them on and Renji said follow me. As he led her down the hallway. When they stopped there was a huge glass door that was open with a balcony on the other side and Tsunade saw Ichigo sitting there with breakfast on the table he was sitting by and he said ah, you must be Tsunade Bachin. Please come eat breakfast with me as I have much I would like to discuss with you. That is all Renji, please see to it we are not disturbed. Renji said yes, your lordship. As he bowed and left. Tsunade thought as she heard the name he called her must not kill. As she smiled and walked out on the balcony and sat down. Ichigo said allow me to introduce myself before we start off on the wrong foot my nephew and I did. I am Ichigo Uzumaki, the feudal lord for the land of lightning. Tsunade said it's nice to meet you. I see you picked up the brat's colorful nickname, huh? Ichigo chuckled and said at least he didn't call you an ego-obsessed gay pedophile who has fucked up emo plans of power. Tsunade bit her lip and burst out laughing and said sounds about right, so what is it you wish to talk to me about? Ichigo sighed softly and said, what are your long-term plans for him? He told me about his life in Konoha. As he clenched his fist and continued he also told me about his run-in with Isakatsuki, Orochimaru, his banishment, his fiancée Haku as well as his mate Kyuubi and he showed me his unique bloodline as well as the end result of it so I think I know pretty much everything he was willing to share and he told me the only thing he wants to do now is get strong enough to protect his precious people and that he will follow you so I ask you, what are your long-term plans for him? Tsunade took a sip of water and said I plan to teach him and the others everything I can. In the short amount of time I have known him, he has wormed his way into my heart in a way no one else ever has. I see in him both my little brother as well as my deceased fiancé, so it makes me feel like he is the son I never had. I only became Hokage for him, which is why when they got rid of him I left with him. I don't really have a long-term plan besides making them all strong enough to do anything they want. Ichigo took a sip of coffee and said, I see. Do you know what happened to his mother, Kushina? Tsunade said, according to Jiraiya, his godfather, she passed away from complications during labor. At least it is what sensei told him when he finally returned to Konoha after the attack. That is what Jiraiya told me when he informed me as to who Naruto really was after I accepted the job of Hokage. Ichigo looked out across the courtyard and after a moment said, it's peaceful here. Isn't it? Tsunade looked out across the yard and said, yes, it is. Ichigo after a moment of silence asked, do you really see him as your son? I mean, he told me that you were the closest thing to a mother or grandmother he ever had. Saying the last part sadly. Tsunade looked at Ichigo and said, yes, why? Ichigo said, after I received your letter I sent a spy to Konoha to see if your story had merit and discovered you were telling the truth as well as learning about the political situation there. It is only a matter of time before they take your title of Hokage away and elect a new one. You do realize that, right? Tsunade said yes. I also appointed Jiraiya as the Rakudame Hokage to help keep Konoha busy while I got them to someplace safe to figure things out and begin to act. I didn't realize it at the time how much political influence the kid had though. Ichigo said yes, I was surprised as well. Spring, Wave, T, and I hear Suna has also cut ties with Konoha over it. Tsunade said yeah. 3 minor and 1 major country backing him. Not bad for a genin of 9 months. Ichigo was quite a moment and asked, he told me that his dream had been to be Hokage. Do you think that someday he would make a good Kage? Tsunade looked at Ichigo serious and said yes, I do. I gave him my grandfather's necklace as a sign of my faith in him. I was planning to name him my successor when I retired from being Hokage. Ichigo looked at her judging Tsunade and said, good. Then it makes what I am about to say even more real. I have a proposal for you, Tsunade, one that if you agree will shake the entire foundation of the elemental nations. Tsunade said, I am listening. As she gave Ichigo her undivided attention. Ichigo said, I wish to adopt Naruto as my son and have you become my wife and his mother officially. Making Tsunade eyes wide as she tried to figure out what was going on. Tsunade bit her lip and asked why. Ichigo smiled a small smile and said, don't worry about us caring for each other, as the actual marriage is just the legal way to do what I actually want to do. You see, I only became the feudal lord here because the previous one had one daughter who I had met in Whirlpool before it was destroyed after she ran away from here, and we got married before I learned who she really was. Her father passed away, and this country nearly was destroyed because 3 different parties tried to choose the next feudal lord. One was the Hidden Cloud Village, the other was the Hidden Whirlpool Village, and the last was the Hidden Rain Village. Rain decided to destroy some of the competition and they attacked Whirlpool and my wife and I escaped. She then told me the truth and took the title of feudal lord as his heir to stop the war that was started between Whirlpool and Rain. She used her power to have lightning aid Whirlpool to force Rain back, but then Rain got Iwa and soon it turned into the second great shinobi war with most of the fighting being in Rain and Whirlpool, which ultimately finished Whirlpool off and turned Rain into a wasteland. You saw firsthand what happened to that country. Tsunade was quite a moment and said, yeah, I did. Ichigo nods and said, anyways, I am not able to have kids due to an injury and my wife died by an assassin during the war, so I as her husband I was the new feudal lord. I do not wish to see history to repeat itself again, so what I would like to happen is for Naruto to take my place after I pass away. However, as he is now he does not have the backing or the strength to go by unchallenged, so this is where my proposal involves you. As my wife, it would give you political backing to go to different nations, helping to gain him the political backing, training, strength, and whatever else that he will need. You said it yourself that he already has some and I believe he can have more. He is his mother's child after all and anything he puts himself behind will get done. That will also provide protection for the Hyuga that is with him that I have no doubt will also be one of his wives. This Akatsuki worries me, so with my power backing your group, hopefully we can stop them before they can get him. Tsunade sighed and thought, I can see where he is coming from and odds are another great shinobi war will start if he dies without an heir. He's also the only link Naruto has to his heritage. I know if I turn this down it would hurt him in the end and it's only in title, so I don't have to worry about anything physical, but what about Shizune? She's been with me for all these years and even left the new life she wanted to start in Konoha to come with me. If Naruto is my son, she is definitely my daughter and she said I need to talk this over with Naruto and Shizune. I would do it for him, but you have to understand she has been with me for the past 15 years. If he's my son then she is my daughter. I can't force this onto her or him without talking to both. I hope you can wait for the answer. Ichigo smiled and said, I am not going anywhere, so go ahead and think it over and discuss it with who you need to. Tsunade nods as she gets up and said thank you. As she turned and walked toward where her room was. After she was gone, Ichigo said, "You know Renji, it's not nice to eavesdrop." Renji stepped out of his side room and said, "My apologies sir, but I have to ensure your protection. My honor demands it." Ichigo said, "Relax my old friend. As I told her, I am not going anywhere for a while. I have many more miles to go before I rest my head." Renji asked, "Do you think it is wise to accept him for my heir?" Ichigo smiled and said, "As I told Tsunade, he is his mother's son. He can't stand still for long. He has to be on the move or he will go crazy. Tsunade also won't accept my deal. Her heart belongs to another already, even if she does not want to admit it. Besides, Naruto doesn't need a mother or father anymore. He needs something else, and those who are with him now are that. Love of a companion." Renji asked, "Then if you know she will decline the offer, then why make the offer in the first place?" Ichigo smirked and said, "Politics Renji, politics. As we speak, word is already spreading about me backing of Naruto as the other leaders have started to do. Some will speculate because of what you overheard, others will think it's because of my sister, and then others will think I am trying to lure him into a trap to get his bloodline or to join the Cloud Village." Renji asked, "Then which is it?" Just then a bird flew by the south wall, and Ichigo said, "And there goes the spy the Raikage has in our rank," sending a message to him with what he overheard earlier. Now the Cloud Village will try to recruit him and his group as well as his allies, which will then spark the interest of other villages, which will then make people focus on Konoha, trying to figure out what they were thinking getting rid of him, thus weakening that village's support, creating a power vacuum with Konoha becoming a minor village, and thus a new village will rise to power, and that village will have Naruto at its core, either as its leader or with his backing, earning him the respect and the life he should have always had. The life of a respected man who does not have to walk with his head held in shame, but with his head held high and his shoulders straight. The man his mother and father would have wanted him to grow up to be." Renji said, "I see. You truly are a dangerous man, my lord." Ichigo said, "Only to those who are my enemies and those of my family. Before they leave Renji, I ask you to teach him the basics of swordsmanship, as I wish to give him my blade when he leaves. It's his by right now since I have already learned all it can teach me." Renji said, "I will, my lord." Ichigo said, "Thank you for your support in my life, my friend. I hope your family will rule this land as I have when I pass on." Renji's eyes got wide a moment and Ichigo saw it and said, "That's right. You will take my place. I trust it to you. I only ask that you watch what's left of my family as you have watched me when the time comes." Renji said, "It will be an honor, sir." Ichigo looked over the yard and said, "The honor's mine." Tsunade walked into her room and sat down on her bed and thought, "What am I going to do? I can't marry him because I would never marry anyone or let them get that close to me again after Dan. To do so would tarnish the memory of him I have. It's why I refuse to be with him, because if I get too close to him I will lose him and I can't handle losing someone else. But what should I do about Naruto? I admit what he offers is a good deal, but should I sacrifice myself and Shizune for him? I never asked her for her opinion. She just came with me without question." As she sighed. After about an hour a knock was heard on her door, shaking her out of her thoughts, and Tsunade said, "Yes." "Who is it?" Shizune's voice said, "It's me, Tsunade-sama." Tsunade smiled and said, "Come on in. It's unlocked." Shizune walked in and said, "Oh, you're already up. I thought you might have slept in a little since it's been a few days since we were in an actual bed instead of the ground. I came to see if you needed anything." With a smile on her face. Tsunade sighed and said, "Close the door and come sit. I need your advice." Shizune blinked and thought, "My advice? She never asked for my advice. I wonder what's wrong." As she closed the door and sat down on the foot of the bed, Tsunade bit her lip and said, "This morning I had coffee with Naruto uncle." Shizune said, "Oh." Tsunade said, "Yeah. He had a proposal he wanted to run by me concerning all of us in Naruto." Shizune asked, "Really, what was it?" Tsunade said, "You don't remember it since you weren't born yet, but the second great shinobi war started over in these lands, and we all believed it was started by Rain attacking Whirlpool for no reason. I learned this morning that wasn't exactly true. It actually started because there was a three-way political fight between Whirlpool, Cloud, and Rain for who would get the seat of the feudal lord since the last one had died and his daughter had disappeared." Shizune said, "And they fought because Naruto uncle got it?" Tsunade said no as she began explaining everything she was told. At the same time this was happening, Naruto was being led to the same balcony Tsunade had been at earlier and he saw his uncle there, and Ichigo said, "Ah Naruto, I am glad you could join me so soon." Naruto smiled and said, "So what's up?" The silent dude in armor note said, "You wanted to see me." As he looked at the samurai who was leaving, Ichigo laughed a little and said, "Oh, that's Howler. He used to be real loud until an enemy hit him in the voice box and he lost the ability to speak now. As for why I called you here, I talked to Tsunade about a proposal I had and she is thinking it over right now. If she accepts, then Tsunade will become your mother officially and I will become your father." Naruto frowned and after a second said no. Making Ichigo look at him. Ichigo asked no what? Naruto sighed and said you're my uncle. That is given and I appreciate the offer, but I finally know who my mother and father were and know they didn't just abandon me or hate me like people told me. I want to honor their memories and if I took that offer I would feel like I was ashamed to be their son. Ichigo smiled and said I am glad and I respect your wishes and you will always have a place here nephew. Since I don't actually have any other relatives besides you I want you to have the Uzumaki blade and Renji has said he will teach you how to use it if you are interested. I can also show you a few jutsu I remember from when I was still a ninja. I figure with all the chakra I can feel you are releasing all the time that your control must be bad so I can teach you the chakra exercises of Whirlpool also. Would you like that? Naruto said hell yeah. Ichigo laughed and said well then come on, let's get started. As he got up and showed Naruto to the courtyard. When they got there Naruto was bouncing on his feet and Ichigo said you're just like your mother. So full of energy and excitement. Naruto asked so what do we do first? Ichigo asked what chakra control exercises do you know first? Naruto frowned and said water walking, tree climbing and I just started learning to water walk on my hands. Ichigo frowned a moment and said I see. Well then I guess we can start on the basics. Water walking is the first thing Whirlpool had for chakra control and then we moved up from there. Since you already know it I will show you the next exercise. As he walked over to a small pond and he walked out to the middle of it and closed his eyes. Naruto looked on for a moment and asked what are you going to show me? Ichigo said patience Naruto. Watch the water and tell me what's going on. Naruto walked closer and looked at the water and at first he did not see anything and then he noticed movement and he said hey, this pond has a current. Ichigo laughed and said close. What I am actually doing is moving the water in a circle around me making a small whirlpool. You have to focus on staying on top of the water and then also focus on moving the water below you by creating motion in the water with your chakra. You get it? Naruto scrunched his nose and said it's like the Rasengan in a way. Ichigo frowned and said show me that jutsu. I have heard of it but never actually saw it. Naruto nods and puts his hands together and said Kagebunshin no jutsu. And a Kagebunshin appeared and Naruto held out his hand as the clone began to help mold the chakra and Ichigo looked as the Rasengan formed. When it was done he said so you send your chakra into multiple directions and add the power to it while controlling it, correct? Naruto was wide-eyed and asked how. Ichigo said your father must have made the Rasengan after he met your mother. Moving chakra in multiple directions is the next step of the exercise I am teaching you now however doing it in such a small area as you just did is something that would take a lot of time and patience to get. How long did it take for you to learn it? Tsunade who had came out and said he learned the first step in 12 days, the second step in 10 days and the last step in a week. Why? Ichigo said impressive. To learn such a famous and deadly jutsu in such a short time is signs of a hidden prodigy. Now as I was saying the first exercise here Naruto is to make the surface of the water turn in a whirlpool in one direction or the other. Go ahead and try it while I talk with Tsunade. Naruto nods and walks out on the water and when Ichigo got beside Tsunade he said just forget about the deal. I told Naruto about it and he said he did not want us to become his parents. He said he finally knows who his parents were and that they did not abandon him or hate him so he wishes to honor them. He said if we adopted him he would feel like he was ashamed of his parents. Tsunade let out a breath and said I was actually coming to tell you that I refused the offer also. I don't think Naruto needs a mother now but friends and companions, but you already knew that, didn't you? Ichigo asked me, I don't know what you mean. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and Ichigo smiled and said yeah, I knew you would refuse before I ever asked. Tsunade asked then why did you ask what were you hoping to achieve? As she glanced around. Ichigo said relax. I got the desired results to what I wanted. I have a spy in my men somewhere for the Reikage. Who it is I am not for sure but I do know they send word by message bird. After our talk the bird was seen leaving the castle so I am sure that the spy heard my offer for you. Tsunade asked in a controlled hostile voice, so you were using me? Ichigo said no, I was using the spy to ensure the protection of the Hyuga who cares for my nephew as well as to cause Konoha some trouble. Tsunade blinked and said explain. Ichigo said simple Cloud Country has two Jinchurikis already. One being the younger brother of the Reikage. Now with what we discussed this morning when the Reikage gets the message he will first be interested in the Hyuga however the moment he sees a free Jinchuriki, all his focus will then go toward Naruto. When he hears that the legendary Tsunade is also with him and is willing to go wherever Naruto goes and is accepted, he will either come here himself or send a special envoy here to try and persuade your little group to come to Cloud and join the village. I know that Cloud has spies also from other villages, so the moment he starts to get ready to come, messages will be sent to other villages who will also focus their attention on Naruto. Especially when it appears he has 4 nations that would immediately join any village he joins. The other villages then will send spies to Konoha and to those countries to try and find something that will attract Naruto to their village, which will uncover the truth about how Naruto was treated, which will then reach the ears of each of the other feudal lords, who will also themselves start trying to attract Naruto to them, because getting you on their side would gain them considerable bragging rights and power. When they find out Naruto is the son of the Yondaime, and also my nephew, even more people will go after him to try and get the second yellow flash before he becomes famous, as well as gaining favor with me, which will also make it where they will take their business away from Konoha, trying to distance themselves from them, in hopes to lure Naruto. Tsunade thought and said, thus creating a power vacuum that will have Naruto at the center to fill it. You do realize this could cause another great shinobi war. Ichigo said perhaps, or it could be a chance to unify each of the nations under one lord again. The last emperor was the Six Realm Sage, and anyone who had large money or political connections made themselves a feudal lord of whatever they owned, dividing up the elemental countries until everyone suffers. Tsunade gasped and asked, are you insane? Trying to make Naruto the emperor is crazy, Ichigo said, but he has the best chance of anyone to actually pull it off, and if he does, then there won't be another great shinobi war. In fact, the age of the hidden villages could end if he wished. He could change the war or destroy it. Tsunade suddenly fell to her knees as a memory hit her. Flashback. Tsunade drank a sip of her sake and asked, what did you say again, Jiraiya-kun? I could have swore I heard you say something stupid and perverted. Jiraiya said, I was just telling sensei here about the prophecy the Toad Sage gave me before I was allowed to sign the Toad contract. He claimed I would travel across the world and see it like no one has ever before, and I will create a book that will make me famous. A perverted book. However, he also said that I will take a student who is prophesied to change the world forever, either by saving it or destroying it. Then flashback. She looked at Naruto, who was concentrating, and thought, could he be the prophesied child, and if he is, will he save the world or destroy it? Ichigo asked, are you okay, Tsunade? Tsunade said, yeah. Just lost my balance a moment. Must be the elevation here. As she stood back up, Ichigo smiled and said, well, take it easy. I have Renji going to start training Naruto to use the Uzumaki family sword later today, so I hope you don't mind me helping my nephew get stronger. Tsunade said, no, that's alright. It will give me a chance to get the girl's chakra reserves higher. As she took one last glance at Naruto before walking away. As they were walking away, Naruto thought, what was that about? As he saw Tsunade fall a moment and then stand back up. When Tsunade was returning to the castle, Shizune walked out with Haku and Hinata, and Tsunade asked, so are you both ready to begin training? Hinata asked, what about Naruto-kun? Tsunade looked over her shoulder near the end of the courtyard and said, he is already training with his uncle for now, and I am going to work on increasing your chakra reserves and physical strength. I want you both to use chakra and run laps on the side of the walls of the castle. Run 10 laps, and then we will begin physical training. Haku asked, how long are we going to be here, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade frowned and said, I don't know yet, but keep your things packed so in case we need to leave quickly we can. Shizune asked, is everything taken care of? Tsunade said, yeah, Naruto already made the decision I was going to make, so everything is alright. Shizune thought, so Naruto did not want parents, I wonder why. As the teen girls began to run along the walls, Tsunade glanced at Shizune and said, you also, Shizune? Can't have you falling behind the others now, can we? Shizune said, hi Tsunade-sama. As she got up on the walls and chased down the girls and then past them. A few hours later, after eating lunch, Naruto walked out in the courtyard again with Ichigo, who had his sword on him, and Ichigo pulled it off and said, here, this belongs to you now. As he handed it to Naruto. Naruto looked at the sheathed sword, which was in a black sheath with a black strap connected to it, and he tried to put it on his side like Ichigo did, and Ichigo said, you're still not tall enough for that style of kenjutsu. Here, let me help you. As he put it over Naruto's shoulder, with it reaching across the right shoulder and coming across his left hip. Ichigo said, there, how does that feel? Naruto said, weird. It's heavier than I thought it would be. Ichigo laughed and said, that's because you're not used to it. Just keep it on you all the time unless you're bathing and changing, and soon you will not even notice it. Ah, here's Renji. Now Naruto, I want you to listen to him and do exactly as he says. Renji is going to teach you everything you need to know about using a sword. Naruto said, yes uncle. Ichigo said, good, I will see you later. Renji, don't go easy on him. Renji smiled and said, hello again Naruto. Now what do you know about swords? Naruto said, they're heavy and you can stab people with them, and they can be thrown to cut off people's heads and to stand on them. Renji blinked and blinked again and asked, where the hell did you hear all that? Naruto rubbed his head and said, my team had met Zabuza Mamachi, and that is what he did, and he was a member of the Seven Swordsmen. Renji said he was also a disrespectful brute who never cared about his sword or his life. A sword is an extension of yourself. You will learn to think of it as a part of you that is missing if you don't have it with you. You will treat the sword with respect and it will not fail you. Disrespect the sword and it will end in your death. Naruto asked, huh? Renji sighed and said, alright, I see how it's going to be. Draw your sword. Naruto reached up with his right hand and couldn't grab it and had to reach with his left hand to get it and he had to pull 3 times to get it to come out of its sheath. Renji frowned and said I could have killed you 20 times before you even drawed your blade. You must learn to draw it quicker, but you can do that on your own later. Now when I train you I will be teaching you reflexes and defense. I will not teach you offense because a sword is a weapon of defense, not attack. You only attack when you know you can kill your enemy. Do you understand? Naruto said I think so. Renji said just remember this simple rule. If you ever go to attack me I will hurt you and never train you again, no matter what your uncle says. Now repeat that rule. Naruto said never attack you or you will hurt me and never train me again. Renji said good, now defend yourself and remember the rule. As he pulled his sword away from his side and attacked Naruto, who tried to defend only for his sword to be knocked on the ground. Renji slapped his sword across Naruto's ass and said get your sword and do it again. Naruto grabbed it and Renji attacked again and Naruto fell on his ass the second time from the force of Renji attack. Renji said don't wait for my orders. Get to your feet and prepare yourself again. Naruto got up and blocked the first strike and lost his sword that was swung away. Renji said again. Naruto frowned and got his sword and Renji said repeat this every time you lose your sword. My sword is my life, to lose it is to lose my life, to disrespect it is to disrespect myself. My sword is a part of me. My sword is a weapon of defense, not attack. I only attack when I am sure I can kill my enemy. Naruto blocked the first strike and lost the sword on the second strike and he said, my sword is as he repeated what Renji said. It continued like this for the next 4 hours and by that time Naruto was able to survive 10 strikes before he lost his sword. Renji smiled and said good, now I will quit going easy on you and start to increase my speed and strength. You have seen all 10 of the major attack strikes now. Now we must work on your muscle memory and your instincts. You will also have to increase your footwork because you are too slow on that. When we finish for the evening you will run 20 laps around the castle walls with chakra and 20 laps around the courtyard without chakra and you will be timed. Every day you are to try and cut off a minute of your total time. Let's go. As he attacked Naruto again. This is how Naruto next week went by. He would do chakra control training in the morning with his uncle, learning to make a whirlpool go one way and then multiple ways which he had only gotten 2 different rotations and Ichigo said, you will not have mastered this exercise until you have created at least 10 rotations. The girls each ran laps every day around the castle walls, adding 5 laps each day until they reached 25 laps and they were now starting to decrease the time it took to run those 25 laps. After that Tsunade had each of the girls reading medical books and then she began to show them the chakra scalpels. Hinata asked is Naruto going to learn this also Tsunade-sama? As she read over a medical book, Tsunade said later. For now he is learning what he needs to learn the most, chakra control, speed and defense. Where all of you need to improve your chakra levels, you all have nearly perfect control where he has more chakra than probably me, but has bad chakra control which is bad for medical jutsu. In fact I doubt he will ever be able to do more than minor healing if even that. None of us would be good as swordsmen, but Naruto would be since his taijutsu is so screwed up from what I saw when he and I fought. Shizune giggled and said that means he had no taijutsu to speak of. Hinata said he does now. He learned the Toad taijutsu. Trying to defend Naruto. Tsunade said, and Jiraiya is the only one who could help him with it since I never learned it and none of you would know it, so if I were to help him with his taijutsu, I could actually hurt it. Haku nods and asks so when will we be learning more medical jutsu? Tsunade said you have all done well learning the chakra scalpels in a short week and next week we will start with learning jutsu, but for now let's continue to increase your reserves and it would also be a good idea when you're not busy to work on your hand signs. I want you to try and do all of them in less than 2 seconds. This will aid you later. As the girls had their training and Naruto had his events around the world were taking place that would change the fate of the world. Irakage looked at the report he had been handed earlier and he looked out the window for several minutes and said Bolt. Bolt, the equivalent of Anbu in the Cloud Village. 4 men appeared and the Irakage quickly wrote something on a piece of paper and said, have these people meet me here in 2 hours. As he handed the paper to one of the members and all 4 looked at it and nods before leaving in puffs of smoke. 2 hours later the door to the Irakage office opened up and 5 people appeared. One was a woman with brownish blonde hair with black eyes that had slitted pupils, she was wearing a chunin vest and a black one-piece bodysuit. She was Naiujido, Jinchuriki of the Nibi. Next to her was a man who had a pair of sunglasses over his eyes, a white turban over his head and several swords on him with a pair of brown pants. He was severely tanned looking to be sunburned and had tattoo with a marking of iron on his shoulder and horns on his right cheek. He was Kiribi also known as Killer B, Jinchuriki of the Hachibi. Just behind him was Samui, Amoy and Kari. The 3 Chunin students of Killer B. Irakage looked at the 5 and said I am glad you could all come so quickly. I have received a report from my spy in the feudal lord's castle that has caught my attention. It seems the heiress to the Hyuga clan, Hinata Hyuga, is currently in his castle. Making the eyes of all five widen slightly. The Raikage said, but that is not the most interesting thing. She actually is not what I am calling you here for. It is her companions that interest me. How many of you have heard of the events around the attack on Konoha by Suna and Odo 3 months ago? Ujido said, it is common knowledge that the Kazukiage was killed and impersonated by Oro. The Raikage chuckled and said, forgive me for that mistake. I meant the actual battle with the Ichibi outside the gates of Konoha. Ujido frowned and said the official story is that Sasuke Uchiha defeated the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi, Sabaku no Gara. The Raikage chuckled and said yes, Konoha does paint an impressive picture of the traitorous Uchiha, however there are several things I find wrong with that story. The first is they say Gambunta, the Toad boss, was fighting Shukaku and Sasuke Uchiha has never signed the Toad contract and Jiraiya of the Sannin was across the village dealing with summoned snakes at the time. Omboy said, so that means that there is another Toad summoner. The Raikage smirked and said yes. Now what I find interesting is that Konoha has tried desperately to hide this fact, even going so far as to say the battle between Gambunta and the Ichibi was nothing but a genjutsu to distract everyone away from protecting the village. However, they can't deny that a genin was taken with Jiraiya when he went to look for Tsune to become the Godame Hokage of Konoha. A genin who used red chakra to open his chakra points in his body after a Hyuga sealed them all during their match in the Chunin exams before the invasion. Filler B said, so Kyuubi got himself a Jinchuriki. Ichibi just wants to sigh, looks like all the Biju are going to eventually die. What's meant to be will be. So what do you want from me? As he crossed his arms. The Raikage said, can you please stop rhyming until this is over, brother? Now, as I was saying, the boy is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi as my brother has stated, but the boy is an interesting one from what I can tell, even for a Jinchuriki. According to my spy, the boy stole the forbidden scroll of seals out of the Hokage tower, knocking out the Sandame Hokage, and learned the Kagebunshin no Jutsu in just a few hours, and was able to make hundreds of Kagebunshin to defeat an academy instructor who tricked him into stealing it before he was allowed to graduate from the academy. He then was placed on a team under Hada Kakashi, the only living student of the Yondaime Hokage, along with Sasuke Uchiha and some girl named Sakura. His team went on to face Zabuza Mamachi, also known as the Demon of the Mist and former member of the Seven Swordsmen, as well as the Demon Brothers on their first C-rank mission turned A rank, just 2 months after graduating from the academy. The boy saved the life of Kakashi by actually transforming himself into a demon windmill shuriken. Zabuza escaped since Kakashi was injured and they had to protect their client. Samui whistled and said, that's pretty impressive, even for a Jinchuriki. The Raikage said, oh, that's nothing compared to what this boy has done. You see, later on in the mission the boy met Zabuza apprentice and they became close, though he claims he didn't know at the time she was Zabuza apprentice. He then killed 2 mercenary before rushing to the bridge that their client was building, defeated Zabuza apprentice in battle, who was disguised as a hunter nin, saving the life of the Uchiha. Zabuza apprentice then took a Chidori from Kakashi to save the life of her master, and at that moment the multimillionaire Gato, owner of the Gato shipping industry, showed up with over 200 mercenaries to double-cross Zabuza and to finish off the rest of the survivors who were weakened from fighting. The boy somehow persuaded Zabuza to sacrifice his life to kill Gato, so Kakashi would be distracted, while he actually saved the life of Zabuza apprentice, healing the wounds the chest of the girl, and then dealt with the remainder of Gato men. Tricked Kakashi again as he disposed of the body of the hunter nin and earned the respect of the people of Wave, where they named the bridge they built after him and named him their national hero. Ichido narrowed her eyes and said, that is an awful lot for a nearly fresh out of the academy student to pull. Tricking a Jounin not once but twice during combat while he used medical jutsu to save someone's life without the Jounin knowing. The Raikage smirked and said, oh, that is nothing. Harry said, forgive me for saying this, Raikage-sama, but are you sure all this information is correct? I mean, for you to talk about the boy becoming the Toad Summoner as well as defeating an A-rank missing nin and the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi in his released form is a little much, and you claim that is nothing. Something is not adding up here. The Raikage said, wait till you hear the rest and then you will understand. I know I was a bit skeptical of all this had the current events make it believable. Now after the mission in Wave the boy's team disappeared off the scopes again, probably to let word about him to dissipate so people would not notice him, but during the Chunin exam all 9 rookie genin who graduated with him took the Chunin exams. During the second stage his team met Orochimaru and the boy fought and saved the lives of his teammates from the Sannin, forcing him to flee, but not before he gave the Uchiha a curse mark. All 9 genin made it to the preliminary round with only 2 other Konoha team making it, 1 team from Sound and the team from Suna, who were all 3 children of the now late Kazukiage, including the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi. The boy then went on and defeated the son of the Inyazuka clan head in combat in the preliminaries. He then disappeared for the 1 month of the, except for when he showed up just in time to save another Konoha genin from being killed by the Ichibi Jinchuriki Gaara, forcing him to flee, and then when Gambunta himself dropped the boy off at the hospital 2 days before the exam's finals. Vegito said so he was being trained by the Sannin at this time I take it as well as Kakashi. Irakage shook his head and said no, Kakashi actually said the boy wasn't worth his time and took the Uchiha to train personally in his own jutsu the Chidori, while leaving the boy with a teacher who saw him as the Kyuubi instead of the Jinchuriki. Filler B said but that don't make sense, does Kakashi suffer from incompetence? Irakage sighed and said I don't know. All I know is the boy defeated the Hyuga prodigy, defeated the Ichibi and his Jinchuriki before leaving to get Tsunade, where the boy had a run-in with Uchiha Itachi, as well as Kisame Hoshigaki, in which after Itachi beat the hell out of his brother mentally and physically, who had learned of them being in the area after they defeated Kakashi putting him in a coma both fled. The boy and Jiraiya then continued to search for Tsunade, while the boy learned to use the Rasengan. Within a month they met Tsunade, and the boy learned the Rasengan and used it in battle to save Tsunade's life against Orochimaru and his right-hand man Kabuto. As a reward Tsunade gave him the Shadame's necklace and she became the Godame Hokage. Vegito said quite impressive. The Rasengan is an A-rank assassination jutsu that took the Yondaime 3 year to create and Jiraiya a year to learn according to the rumors I heard, though if that was all true what about Jiraiya, where was he during this battle and where was Tsunade's assistant Shizune that always is with her? I met them once remember when we were sent to collect that debt. Irakage said oh, they were there except Tsunade had poisoned Jiraiya to keep him out of the fight, but he showed up handicapped and her assistant Tsunade injured herself, so she would stay out of the fight, but also showed up handicapped. I don't know all the details, but had it not been for this boy Tsunade would have joined Orochimaru instead of Konoha for some reason. Now after Tsunade came back with them and she healed Kakashi and Sasuke, they were sent to T country where the boy killed former A-rank missing nin, currently arraigned in Aoi Rakishu damaging the region, and helped to stop a plot to overthrow the ruler of the land of T. Vegito said so he saved 2 countries huh? Sounding doubtful. Irakage said actually that isn't his most interesting adventure. You see after that mission he was again sent on another mission with his team to guard the actress Yuki Fujika's. Filler B said he guarded Princess Fune, most impressive boon, maybe I can ask him to introduce me soon. As he rubbed his hand on his chin. Irakage said Yuki Fujika's is in fact a fake name. Her real name is Koyuki Kazuhana, the only child of the former king of Snow Country Setsu Kazuhana and niece to the man who killed her father Dotu Kazuhana. Anyways the boy guarded her back to her home country, only to pull a coup d'etat and assassinated Dotu himself, earning favor from the princess and the country, also becoming another national hero. Vegito asked so you're saying somehow this boy is being sent on missions that instantly upgrade earning him sudden political backings. Nobody gets those type of missions in succession unless they have a reason for it. Irakage said I thought the same thing, but I now have a theory. You see the Sandaime and the boy had a grandfather-grandson relationship. I believe that he wanted to ensure that Konoha would never get rid of the boy because of the political power he would have backing him. Samui said, but the mission to Tea and Snow would have been after the Sandaime was dead, so why is he still getting missions that gave him political power? Irakage said apparently Tsunade sees him as the son she never had and wants to protect him. Why else would she leave the office of Hokage and flee with him when the council decided to use the Uchiha defection to their advantage to either force the Hokage to banish him or to execute him even though he was not in charge of the mission and aided in the fights against 5 Jounin level ninja as well as going against the Uchiha taking 2 Chidori to the chest and a broke neck from being slammed head first into the ground by the Uchiha. Filler B said so he has regeneration from Kyuubi. Irakage smirked as he put both his hands behind the back of his head and said, what if I told you that none of the things I have told you is why I am so interested in this boy? What if I told you that all of this pales in comparison to what is most interesting about this boy and the real reason I called you all here for? Making all 5 blink and look at the Irakage. Vegito asked if gaining the political favor of 3 countries does not impress you then what does? Irakage said 4 actually. Soon a new Kazukiage is Gaara and he respects Naruto so much he severed all ties with Konoha, but that's not important. Everyone was gaping at him and Killer B said bro, are you stoned or do you even have a brain in that big cone? Because if what you said about the boy is true Konoha is boned, so what is so great about this kid that all else fails so I can go home? As he crossed his arm. Irakage said oh, it's simple, the boy is the son of Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha and Kushina Uzumaki, sister to our feudal lord. Also you see according to the spy who overheard the boy and the feudal lord talking, Kyuubi gave the boy a bloodline that allows him to absorb other bloodlines as well. But the most interesting thing about the boy is not the fact who his parents are, what he has done so far, what his bloodline could do or even who he is related to. The thing that is most interesting is the boy is Kyuubi's chosen mate. At that word the room was silent, but both Yujito and Killer Bee both grabbed their heads and fell to their knees. Killer Bee heard I am going to kill that boy. I chased after her for over 4,000 years and she always turned me down, let me at him, let me at him. Yujito heard take me to meet Kyuubi, we have so much girl talk to talk about. How could she pick a mate without ever telling me, I thought we were best friends. The Raikage asked what is wrong. Killer Bee, who was rubbing his head, said Hachibi want to kill the boy and use his bones as a toy, he said Kyuubi should be his, so he is a little pissed. Yujito said Nibi wants to meet Kyuubi, apparently they're gossipers. Making everyone sweat drop. The Raikage said well I can't have you going and killing the boy because I want to try and get him to join the village, so I guess you will have to stay here and train your apprentices. Yujito, you will come with me to the feudal lord castle and hopefully with Nibi help we can convince the boy to join us. Yujito said yes Raikage-sama. The Raikage said we leave at dawn tomorrow, meet me at the south gates at sunrise. You're all dismissed. They all bowed and left, and the Raikage thought the next yellow flash with the Kyuubi at his control, as well as his political backing. The boy is a gift from Kami to whoever can gain him. Konoha was fools. Block, 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 block. That was all Naruto could do at the moment because he was acting on pure instincts. In the time he had been learning Kenjutsu from Renji he learned Renji did not pull any strikes. Naruto still felt the phantom pains from the strike to his chest and the strike to the ribs and his arms and wrist. Renji smirked as Naruto has been blocking him for an hour as Renji picked up speed and thought not bad kid, but let's see you handle this. As suddenly all Naruto could see was blurs and his sword was knocked away and Naruto sighed before he started to repeat the same, saying Renji had forced him to say every time he lost the blade, but this time Renji did not stop his attack, but sliced Naruto in the side and said, this is a fight Naruto, not a little kid game. I will not stop my attacks on you even if you lose your weapon because an enemy will not stop. Naruto quickly rolled out of the way of Renji's strike and leaps for the sword, only to get kicked in the side. Naruto frowned and tried to get around Renji for the blade, but Renji was cutting him off each time, and Naruto faked right and rolled left and dodged a strike before he brought the sword up from a half crouch to intercept Renji's strike. Renji blurred out of sight and Naruto frowned and said I can't see you. Only to feel a blade against his neck. Renji said your instincts are good boy, but your speed and reaction time are still too slow. Tsunade said she wanted to start your ninjutsu training again so today you will start working on your that, but to help you with your speed and strength, I have a present for you. Naruto blinked and asked you almost killed me just to tell me you got a gift for me. Renji released Naruto and said yes I did. Come. As he began to lead Naruto out of the courtyard. Soon they walked into a stock room and Renji said this is the castle armory. As he walked toward the back of the room and he said here it is. As he reached over and grabbed what appeared to be a huge roll of black tape. Naruto asked what is that? Renji smirked and said this is something special my clan created a long time ago. No one outside of the clan has ever even seen this stuff before, so you are receiving a special gift of not only seeing it, but getting to use it. This is magnetic weights. Inside this normal looking binding is little tiny threads of metal that are magnetized that affect you by the magnetic forces in the air. The metal is in everything here in Lightning Country. In fact most believe this metal is the cause of our lightning storm, which is why people try to stay away from it or dig it up and move away from their homes to keep their homes from being struck by lightning. Naruto said then why are you giving this to me? Trying to get me electrocuted. Renji burst out laughing and said no, and that is the secret of these things. They have been perfectly balanced to where they are totally neutral. Not positive or negative. They absorb the positive and negative particles in the air and which power the weights. The more power they have the heavier the weights get, so the more you move the more they weigh and in reverse the less you move the less they weigh. Get it? Naruto asked then how do they help me? I don't get it. Renji said alright, say you run 10 laps at your top speed in 5 minutes without these on. Now with them if you push yourself to do those same 10 laps in 5 minutes, you will actually be running those laps in like 4.5 minutes when you take the weights off. Naruto rubbed his head and asked then what makes these different than regular weights from what I understand you wear weight, you get heavier and slower and then you take them off you are faster. At least that was what happened with fuzzy brows. Renji smirked and said that is true about regular weights and what makes these weights so special is it does not train your body very much in long-range speed attacks, but short burst of speeds. The kind needed for lethal strikes in Kenjutsu. These weights slowly increase your overall speed like normal weights, but not by over-muscling your body. Instead they work on fine-tuning your muscles to work at a certain speed and then when you are calm and ready, you push your body to attack, which will then be lethal and unprepared, for because the enemy you are fighting will be used to you working at one speed and not anticipate your true speed. Remember, samurai use our armor like weights to increase our overall speed even further than normal, and you will most likely pick up some weights for your arms, legs and chest to increase your overall speed, but since this looks like normal binding, and you use it like normal binding for your arms, legs and body, then you have a secret surprise that will allow you when you're standing calm waiting for the enemy, you can then use the true speed that is not possible when you're fighting full force. Do you get it? Naruto thought a moment and said, this is for that quick draw thing I saw some of your men doing, right? Where they just disappear for a second or two and then reappear while the target gets destroyed. Renji said, exactly, this is what trains our clan to use that attack. Naruto looked at it and said, cool. Who would have thought? Renji said, yeah, it is pretty cool. Now remember, you can't tell anyone about this stuff since it is so treasured by my clan. Naruto said, I won't, I promise, and Naruto Uzumaki keeps his promises as he looked sad for a moment. Renji said, sometimes a promise can't be kept, the one with the Uchiha is such a promise. You can't save those who don't want to be saved. Now let me show you how to put this on, and then I will give you a set of chest, leg, and arm armor to help with your normal weight training for now until you get some actual weights. The next day as the sun rose over the Hokage monument, the guards at the gate were relaxing bored when a stomping sound was heard and one guard asked, hey, do you hear that? The other guard said, yeah, sounds like army or something. The first guard said, alert the Anbu. The other guard nods and runs in to find an Anbu. About 20 minutes later the walls were lined with ninja ready to fight when the first person in the army appeared, and it was a fire temple guard, and an Asuma said, don't attack. Those are the Fire Lord's temple guards. As they approached the walls to the village they stopped and the sound of stomping could still be heard, and down the road another group appeared and Asuma jumped down and said, what's going on, Master Ryu? As he approached one of the temple guards. Ryu said, the Fire Lord is coming along with his entire samurai guard and each of the temple guards from the fire temple. He is not very happy at the moment, and if your people are seen as hostile, he will most likely have us destroy Konoha, so I would tell the Rakudame Hokage Jiraiya to tell his men to stand down. Asuma blinked and Jiraiya's voice carried over all the ninja, you heard him, stand down now and prepare for the Fire Lord's arrival. Making all look at him as he now stood in Hokage robes with the kanji for Rakudame on the back. Everyone was thinking, where is Tsunade? And Jiraiya said, all will be explained later today. Now prepare for the Fire Lord's arrival, or there won't be a later because his men will kill us all. You may not know it, but if he is bringing his entire samurai guard, then that is over 1500 men, all coming along with the 120 fire temple guards from the 10 fire temples, then he could destroy us no problem if he chose to now stand down. Using his voice very commanding. Each of the ninja frowned and quickly began to leave, and soon all that was left was a few stragglers and the guards at the gate, and Jiraiya walked between the gate's guards and waited. A few minutes later the sight of hundreds of fully armored and armed samurai appeared in the distance with the Fire Lord's mounted carriage in the middle, and they stopped as they reached the gates, and they moved aside as the carriage came to stop at the gates. The door to the carriage opened and the Fire Lord stepped out and he said, captains, go through the village and bring every man, woman and child to the town center around the Hokage Tower for a meeting. If any resist, then kill them. The samurai all began to move past Jiraiya, who was still standing there, into the village, ordering the 2 guards at the gate to go to the town center as ordered, while 2 samurai replaced them. As half of them entered the village, the others began to circle around the village. The Fire Lord shot Jiraiya a glare and said, I have much to ask Hokage, and I demand answers. Jiraiya said, I have only come to power this morning when you arrived, so you could witness my taking over and acknowledging the Godame final orders. The Fire Lord said, I am aware of this, and I will remember that when I deal with you. However, there are many here I am displeased with in your village, and I am prepared to kill them all should I not be satisfied with the answers I receive. If you or anyone interferes, then their life is forfeited. Jiraiya said, I understand. As he bowed. The Fire Lord said, good, now lead me to your office. Jiraiya nods and leads him toward the Hokage Tower, along with all of the Fire Temple guards, ignoring all the people being led there under armed escort. Most still in their night cloths. As they got to the tower there were several people already there, including members of the council, as well as several ninja and civilians, and the Fire Lord said, empty the Hokage Tower of everyone and do not let anyone in besides Jiraiya and myself. If they refuse to leave, kill them. Shall we? Jiraiya's face was neutral at the shocked looks the council members who were there gave, as the Fire Lord said to kill them if they tried to enter, and Jiraiya led him to the Hokage office, and he unsealed the doors and said Tsunade wanted to ensure no one entered between the time she left and I took over. The Fire Lord said nothing and he walked over and sat down in the Hokage chair and said, I am very displeased in your village, Jiraiya. Jiraiya said, so am I, sir. The Fire Lord said, good, then there is hope for this village. Now we wait. An hour later everyone was assembled and the Fire Lord walked out on the balcony of the Hokage Tower and looked over the crowd below, and he said, as you all can't see, I have called a meeting. Before I begin, know that my men have orders. Should anyone interrupt me or try to resist any, they will be killed immediately. The people of Konoha has much to answer for, and I will demand answers. Now where are the members of the council? I want you all to move to the front of the crowd so I can see you all and get my answers, and I mean all members of the council. As the shocked people in the crowd began to move to allow the council members through, they began to look scared, and when they all arrived at the front, the Fire Lord said, "Good, I see you can follow orders from your superiors. Now as you all can't see, Tsunade Senju is not here right now. Because of recent actions of the council, she gave her 2-week notice assigning Jiraiya as her replacement after making several final rulings. Now the first question I have is, why did the council believe that they had the right to use my name and office to threaten their village leader with the execution of a Konoha ninja if she refused to banish the ninja?" Making several people wide-eyed. Kaharu said, "We did not threaten the Godame. We merely stated that her blatant favoritism to a threat to the village could not go on, and because of his actions the village lost the last Uchiha." The Fire Lord said, "Really? From all the reports I read, the Uchiha left the village by himself after knocking out his female teammate who tried to stop him joining 4 Jounin level ninja who were Orochimaru personal bodyguards of his own free, which resulted in the death of 4 Chunin who were returning to the village, as well as the near death of 5 Genin and 1 Chunin when he not only refused to aid the recovery team but went by himself to Orochimaru while the others were fighting and dying. From the reports I read, the one you banished was able to catch up to the Uchiha who then fought him, driving 2 assassination level jutsu into the boy's chest as well as nearly breaking his neck, leaving the boy for dead as he continued on to Orochimaru. So tell me exactly how it was the boy's fault. He was not the team leader for the mission, so why did you blame him for the Uchiha actions? Why did you threaten to have him executed or banished while he was in a coma fighting to live?" Several people were stunned since the council had forbidden all information about the mission to recover the Uchiha. Amaru said, "Based on the law created by the Nidaime Hokage, during wartime like we are now, any shinobi who fails a mission that endangers the village can be either executed or banished, depending on the decision of the Hokage. The loss of the Uchiha to an enemy is a threat to the village." The Fire Lord said, "Really? Then why is it that Sasuke Uchiha is not in the bingo book for treason? After all, going to the enemy during wartime is considered treason if I remember correctly. No matter, after today I will simply post a bounty of $1 million on the head of the Uchiha, dead or alive, for all the headaches he has caused me." Making several people shout out. The Fire Lord screamed, "Kill them." As several people who were shouting suddenly were killed by swords or knives, including 2 council members, shocking everyone. Once everyone was silent and a few people crying, the Fire Lord said, "I trust there will be no further outbursts like that, or I will simply stop this trial and kill everyone in the village and burn it down." Danzo asked, "If I may ask, Fire Lord Sama, why are you so hostile toward our village over a matter that does not concern you?" Trying to gain control of the situation. The Fire Lord said, "That is where you are wrong, council member. The council made it my concern when you used my name and office when you were dealing with your own matters. Now the situation has gotten so far out of hand that 6 countries have cut off all dealings with the Fire country, and I am losing around $6 million a week thanks to you. I have even received threats of war on not just Konoha but the entire Fire country because of you bringing me into this matter. Wind country, Spring country, Wave country, Tea country, Lightning country and Rice field country are all calling for the total destruction of Konoha. In fact, the Lightning Feudal Lord has issued a $25,000 reward for each of the civilian council members head of $500,000 for Danzo, Kaharu, and Hamaru head. Then he also has issued $5,000 on over 600 citizens of Konoha for attacks on his family." The Ashi said, "Excuse me, Fire Sama, but I am not aware of any Konoha citizen attacking any member of Lightning Sama family." The Fire Lord said, "That is where you are wrong. I have read the Anbu reports of the matter myself. Perhaps I should tell you the name of the Lightning Lord. His name is Ichigo Uzumaki, brother to Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze and uncle to Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the only child of the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha." Making nearly everyone gasp. A civilian said, "There is no way that Demon Brat is the son of the Yondaime. Besides, he was never married." Jiraiya chuckled and said, "Actually he was married 2 years before the Kyuubi attack, and Naruto is Minato's son. Why else would he have chosen him for such a heavy burden that you all have hated and persecuted him for?" I see most of the younger generation is confused as to what we are speaking, so I will tell the truth of what happened the night the Kyuubi attacked. The Yondaime was the strongest ninja ever, but there was no way he could kill the Kyuubi. Anyone who fought the Kyuubi that night could tell you how strong it was and how many died trying to hold it off. They can also tell you that the Yondaime did not arrive on the battlefield for over 4 hours. The reason he was not there was because his wife Kushina was in labor giving birth to his son. Minato knew that there was no way to kill the Kyuubi as it was, so he discovered a process to summon the Shinigami to help stop the Kyuubi, but he had to have something he could place the Kyuubi in where it would not be able to escape. The only thing strong enough to hold the Kyuubi and keep it from breaking free is a newborn child. The child is required because their chakra coils are not developed yet, and so as the child grows, they would slowly absorb the demon's chakra making it their own, and when they die, they would take the demon with them. Minato was too kind-hearted to ask another parent to give up their own child if he was not also willing to do it. He sealed the Kyuubi into his son at the cost of his life, and all he asked was that we see his son as the hero he was. Not even an hour after the Kyuubi was sealed was people calling for Naruto death and several trying to attack and kill him. 98 shinobi and 339 civilians died in the riot after the Sandaime informed the village of Minato's final sacrifice, leaving out the fact Naruto was Minato's son to protect Konoha from Iwa, who would have came and killed everyone in our weakened state. The Sandaime passed a law that no one was to tell the younger generation so that Naruto could grow up living a normal life, and any who broke the law was punishable up to being executed. Those 600 that have a reward on their head from the Lightning Lord were the 600 worst attackers on Naruto. He was hated and abused his entire life, and all he did was smile and try and make people laugh. Danzo said stop with the sad story. The boy should have been made a weapon like every other village has done with their Jinchuriki. Take Gaara for example. A perfect Jinchuriki. Trained from birth to use the demon's power and kill their enemies. Jiraiya said, and it was Naruto who summoned Gambunta and fought Gaara outside the village during the Chunin exams to save everyone here's life, and what did he get for it? His apartment was broken into and all his belongings set on fire. Making a lot of the teens who did not know look on with anger at the older generation. The Fire Lord said, as much as I would like to see your council and you argue Hokage-sama, I do have other business to attend to. Now Tsuruhishi, please come forward and give me your report of the financial situation here in Konoha. The auditor Seru stepped forward and said, after careful record checking, my department has determined that Danzo, Kaharu, and Himeru are using the village funds for their own uses, which has resulted in the village being in department for $9 billion, sir. To hide this fact from the Hokage and the council, they have been stealing funds from the orphan accounts, as well as citizen and clan funds, to cover up their uses. Danzo said, this is absurd. I have done no such thing. Seru said, according to the records I have here, you have personally withdrawn from the bank $7 billion in the past 5 years. Your financial records show that you have earned from outside sources that are unregistered $5 billion in the past 5 years, meaning you have $2 billion that you have no rightful claim over, and you do not have any financial records to indicate where $4 billion of the money went to. At this time I would have to say that you have been using them for illegal activities. Several people were shooting Danzo looks, and Jiraiya said, probably to pay for your own private Anbu unit called Root Danzo, which did not aid in protecting the village when we were attacked because they were too busy guarding your mansion, according to the report made after the invasion. Danzo said, I have the right to defend my property, and those men are my private security force. Jiraiya said, as the Rakudame Hokage, I want a list of each of your private security force Danzo and see if any are ninja of this village. If they are, then you Danzo will be charged with treason for misappropriate use of village resources during the time of war. Danzo said, none are. Jiraiya said, good. I want photo ID for each so I can give to every ninja of the village so they are not considered spies or traitors and killed. With a smirk. Danzo frowned as he said, yes Hokage-sama. The Fire Lord said, I assume the other two are just as incriminating Seru. Seru said, indeed sir, shall I go into detail? The Fire Lord said, no, just give the report to the Rakudame Hokage. Now I want Sakura Haruno and Hada Kakashi to come forward. Kakashi and Sakura both walked forward and the Fire Lord said, now Sakura, your team went on a mission to Wave Country, correct? Sakura said, yes Lord Sama. The Fire Lord said, according to the reports I have read from all 3 genin, as well as the report Kakashi made and the letter I received from the client Izuna recently about the mission. I am going to tell you what I believe happened, and each fact I ask you will shake your head yes or no to see if the facts are correct. Do you understand? Sakura nods, and the Fire Lord said it originally was a C-rank mission, and the client's name was Tizuna. A bridge builder nods, you were attacked by Chunin level missing nins called the Demon Brothers. Kakashi pretended to die leaving the genin to defend the client nods. Asuka Chiha tries to take care of one ninja, while your other teammate was wounded by the other nods with a poisoned weapon. Nods Kakashi arrives at the last moment to save the client from the 2 nins. Nods Naruto bleeds the poison out, and you discover that the client lied, and that a business tycoon named Gato is after the bridge builder's life. Nods, you continue the mission and encounters Abusa Mamachi. Nods, Asuka Chiha nearly killed himself because of the Kai. Sakura looked down, and the Fire Lord said, I am waiting Sakura. Sakura nods, and the Fire Lord said Kakashi said he won't let his team die. Nod. He fights Abusa and is captured in a water prison. Nods. Naruto comes up with a plan to save Kakashi by hinging himself into a demon windmill shuriken and has a Kagebunshin throw him to Sasuke, who throws it at Zabuza, and when Zabuza jumps to avoid it, Naruto changes back and attacks Zabuza from behind, freeing Kakashi. Nods. Zabuza and Kakashi fight until someone posing as a hunter nin kills Zabuza with senbons in the neck and Kakashi faints. Nods. Naruto carries Kakashi to the client's house where over the rest of the time there Kakashi is mostly bedridden and teaches your team the chakra exercise, tree climbing. The first thing he actually taught your team. Sakura nods and Kakashi feels several people glaring at him. The Fire Lord said both your teammates train while you guard the client at the bridge and his family when they went to town. Nods. Zabuza is still alive and the hunter nin is his accomplice. Nods. Two mercenaries try to kill the client's family while everyone but Naruto is at the bridge because Kakashi did not want to waste time to wake him. Nods. Naruto saves the client's family and then comes to the bridge, fights the fake hunter nin who had already beat the Uchiha while you guard the client and Kakashi fought Zabuza. Nods. Naruto beats the hunter nin but the hunter nin shushin in front of Kakashi to save Zabuza life from a Chidori. Nods. Gato shows up with 200 men to double-cross Zabuza and Naruto convinces Zabuza to avenge the hunter nin and he does so by killing Gato. Nods. Kakashi orders Naruto to bury both the hunter nin and Zabuza while he checks on the Uchiha who was knocked out and leaves Naruto on the bridge. Nods. By this time several ninja are glaring at Kakashi. The Fire Lord said so that explains why Naruto is seen as a national hero in Wave Country, because he did more on that mission than anyone else did by protecting his teammates, the client's family, as well as using Kagebunshin to build the bridge and help to repair the village. Now that explains why Wave hates you all. Let's take T Country. Your team was assigned to protect the runner for one of the two governing bodies there in a race, right? Sakura nods. Kakashi stays in the village while the rest of your team was sent to protect the runner. Nods. You encounter several missing nins which Naruto protected your team from while you all went ahead with the runner where you met Aoi Rakushu who attacked your team with a Raijin. Sasuke tried to fight Aoi but got defeated and Naruto showed up, saved his life, defeating Aoi and recovering the Raijin, as well as protecting the runner while you stayed with the Uchiha who was injured throughout the rest of the race and even carrying him when his injury stopped him that he received thanks to you and Sasuke being unable to protect him. Sakura looked down and nods. The Fire Lord sighed and said, well, I can see how that would explain why he is a national hero there as well. Now the Spring Country, formerly known as Snow Country. You were originally assigned to protect an actress that was later determined to be the actual princess of Snow Country. You were attacked by ninja again and Naruto saved the princess' life on several occasions, going so far as to make a ladder of Kagebunshin to climb onto an airship when the princess had been captured so he could rescue her. When the princess tried to kill her uncle to free her country, her uncle took he hostage again, fleeing to the Rainbow Glacier and Naruto chased them, fighting her uncle, freeing the princess, as well as activating the generators that thawed the country from its eternal winter. Is that correct? Sakura said yes, but Sasuke and I both fought ninja as well as Kakashi. The Fire Lord said I am aware of that. Kakashi wanted to finish off his petty revenge from an earlier mission failure to the ninja he killed. The Uchiha wanted to test himself and you wanted to prove yourself to the Uchiha. None of you were worried about the princess who was the client you were assigned to protect except Naruto, correct? Sakura looked down and nods and the Fire Lord looked at Kakashi and asked, is there anything you would like to add, Kakashi? Something I missed? Kakashi said no. The Fire Lord said, now Jiraiya. Since I understand why T, Spring, and Wave all are mad now and from what the new Kazuki Gaara has said, the reason he is hostile toward Konoha is for banishing the only person he respected and was able to defeat him, as well as the person he wanted to marry his sister to form a new political alliance. Now from Tsunade's report, the only reason she became the Godame Hokage was because of Naruto, correct? Jiraiya said yes. Orochimaru offered to bring back to life her brother and her fiancé if she would restore his arms from the damage Sensei did to them before he died. He gave her a week to consider. That same day Naruto and I had tracked her down and I asked her to become the Godame and she refused. She insulted the office and the Hokage and Naruto lost his temper and called her a drunk old hag and a coward. She was drunk at the time and she challenged him to a fight. They went outside and she said she could beat him with one finger and they fought and the alcohol got to her, causing her to nearly miss the fact Naruto was trying to make a Rasengan to use on her. She realized it at the last second and had to break her word of only using one finger. She then called him a weak fool that never had a chance to finish learning the Rasengan, just like it was only fools who would become Hokage. Naruto told her he would finish learning it in 3 days. She gave him a week. At the end of the week she met with Orochimaru and turned him down because she didn't want to take either side. She had poisoned me to keep me out of the way and knocked out her assistant Shizune. Naruto came back from training on the Rasengan and we all tracked her down where she was nearly being defeated by Orochimaru and his assistant Kabuto. I ordered Naruto not to get involved since the fight was over his head and Shizune fought Kabuto and nearly died until Naruto saved her. He then fought Kabuto for a while until Kabuto experience gave him the upper hand. He went to kill Tsunade. I was busy fighting Orochimaru and Shizune was injured, so it was a surprise to us all when Naruto got in front of the strike after he had created a Kagebunshin and took the strike through his hand. He then held onto Kabuto hand making it where he could not escape and with the help of the Kagebunshin completed the actual Rasengan. The jutsu that took his father 3 years to create took me a year to learn and he learned the entire process in 1 month. He used the Rasengan and defeated Kabuto, but not before Kabuto damaged Naruto's heart. It was seeing him save her life several times that made Tsunade take a chance and she saved his life, gave him her grandfather necklace and decided to become the Goddamn Hokage. She even acknowledged his dream of becoming Hokage and named him her original successor instead of me, but the council ruined it so she took what belonged to her, took the reason she came to Konoha as well as taking another apprentice and left this village after declaring them free ninja with affiliation to no hidden village, taking the Hokage hat. Her clan half of the village treasury as well as other things that was awarded to her as not only a senju but also the Hokage. Because of the council Konoha has lost the greatest medic ever, the slug contract, the toad contract, because they have informed me as long as I serve Konoha, they refuse to do anything but visit me, so if Orochimaru decides to attack again with Manda, a lot of people are going to die before Manda is defeated since we have no summons that can take him. The Fire Lord rubbed his head and said, that's it. I can't stand the sight of all these people. Even after hearing what all the boy has done in the name of this village, most of the older generation are still looking at him as a demon. As of this moment I hereby withdraw all support of this village. I will send all my missions to other countries. My samurai and temple priest will not come aid your village if it is attacked or need help. I wipe my hands of this village. Your council has ruined the village and the people here are nothing but a waste, well the adults at least. My suggestion to all you children is if you think your families are wrong is get out of this village while you can because if you follow them, it will lead to your death. Let's go. As he moved to leave. As people started to leave Jiraiya said this meeting is not over yet. Since the council has pointed out a law the Nidain created for wartime I will point out several others that were created. Gaining everyone attention. Danzo said you are not the Hokage Jiraiya. We did not elect you. Jiraiya said the council can only elect a Hokage if one was not selected before the Hokage retired or passed away and Tsunade selected me, so you have no say Danzo. Interrupt me again and I will consider it treason and kill you myself. Yes, your little rude agent may kill me in the process, but I will kill you as well. Now that I have everyone attention. Since we are at war resources are going to become scarce. All perishable food will not be rationed to ensure that we always will have enough. All restaurants except for Ichiruka ramen stand will be closed. Ichiruka ramen stand will be allowed to operate it to feed the academy students and will be paid from the Hokage account. Eggs, milk, cheese, bread, alcohol, meat, fish and other perishables will only be eligible to ninja of the village through ration stamps. No ration stamp, no perishable food. The civilian screamed you can't do that. We will starve to death. Jiraiya said, you seem to forget, Konoha is a ninja village, not a civilian village. Civilians should never have been allowed on the council in the first place. If you don't like what I am saying don't let the gate hit you on your way out because you are just using resources that our fighting forces need so you are considered expendable. If you're not a ninja then you have 2 choices, become one or leave. Everyone was stunned hearing Jiraiya and he said now where was I? Oh yes, the second thing is because of several council members we are nearly broke so we are going to have to start taxing luxuries. The hot springs are now $10 more an hour than it has been and that money will go into the Hokage account that only the Hokage has access to since the council can't be trusted. All hot water heaters in the village will be removed from homes and businesses and destroyed. The fuel cost to run them can be used in other areas. The hare said you can't do that. I need my hot baths. Jiraiya said are you saying you're not tough enough to do your duty Kaheru? If so I got an ink pen you can sign your resignation letter with. Now where was I? Oh yes. All hot springs are now co-ed since we don't have enough to be picky between men and women. If you want hot water in your home you can pay for a D-rank mission for some offer Genin and Chunin to use Kaiten Jutsu to boil the water for you. There will be a curfew on all civilians. Any civilian caught outside after dark will be arrested and held by Anbu for a minimum of 1 week and will be questioned by Ibiki or Enko. All council decisions must be approved unanimously now. There is no longer a majority vote. The council does not have the authorization to order any Konoha ninja. If they do so it will be considered treason and the entire council will be executed. All ninja missions must be approved and given out by me. No one else. Danzo, Kaheru, Himaru, I can't do anything about the funds you took because they fell under the term of another Hokage, but I am stating this. If I find you have taken any more funds or resources for your own personal use, I will kill you myself. I would disband the entire council if I had the power to, but you all were power hungry and created laws after the Yondaime and the Sandame's death, weakening the power of the Hokage. I will not let what you did during other Hokage terms work for me. If you do not show me proper respect I will send you to Ibiki or kill you. Kakashi, if you are late for any meeting or mission your Sharingan eye will be removed and destroyed as for the rest of you. The village is officially under martial law until this war is over. I do not require the council permission to pass any law and the council cannot pass any without them all approving and my approval. If you have a complaint complain to the council. Come to me and you will be arrested now for my last ruling all females ninja while on duty inside the village are required to be without bindings or bras. That is all. Dismissed. And thought haha. Enlightening country Tsunade thought why do I feel like killing Jiraiya. In Konoha after the town meeting and the Fire Lord left the town was in a state of shock. Those of the older generation who hated Naruto thought that all this mess was his fault and it was his way of getting revenge on them. The people who were either neutral or favored him thought that Konoha's sins were finally coming back to get them. Most of the ninja of the village realized there was a power struggle in Konoha between the Hokage and the council that finally had come to head. Some thought about what would happen if they failed a mission, would they be banished? Some thought that Konoha was falling into a time of civil war. Others were just confused because of all they heard. The younger generation were looking at the older generation with questions. Those who actually knew Naruto like the Rookie 9 were shocked that their home had been treating someone they knew like they had been. Each began thoughts about it and remembering their past with Naruto looking for proof to deny or accept what they heard and each were sickened by the fact they actually found the proof. In the Hokage office Jiraiya was sitting in his office with his feet on his desk and thought so now that all the cards are on the table, let's see where this goes. Sakura was at Ino's house looking at her former best friend with tears in her eyes and she said I can't believe this. Ino said I know Sakura, did you hear the adults talking about him like he was some kind of creature instead of a person? Sakura nods and said that's crazy. I've been his teammate all this time and he has done nothing but tried to help everyone, never hurt anyone unless there was no choice. Ino looked up at the ceiling and said I almost want to leave this village if this is how they are. Sakura looked down and said Ino can I stay here with you for a while? Ino asked why. Sakura bit her lip and said my mom is one of those who hate him. I heard her saying it's about time they killed him and Ino quickly pulled her into a hug and said okay, you can stay here. Stopping whatever Sakura was going to say. Inoichi downstairs screamed Ino, Sakura, get ready for combat. On teammate training ground Tsume and Yazuka, Hana and Yazuka, with their companions Kurenai, Kiba and Shino were all there sitting and Kiba asked, but mom, if you knew about this, why didn't you ever adopt him? Tsume sighed and said Kiba, there are things that you were not told, most of the council has done everything they can to make his life hell, they made it where he could not be adopted by any of the clans well, that was actually mostly the Uchiha clan's fault, but that's a moot point. The Ino Shikacho families all were supportive of him as was Ai and Shino family, in fact the only ones who were not supportive of him were the Uchiha and the Hyuga, but the Hyuga were at least neutral toward him. Just then the triplet started to growl and Hana said everyone, we got company. As she got up in a defensive stance. Across the village Team 9 were on their training ground and Lee was punching a log saying this is most unyouthful. Denton said I can't believe this. How is it that we all missed what was going on? I thought we were ninja yet we fucking missed the entire village treating the son of the Yondaime like that. Niji said he has defied fate his entire life and they still treat him like a creature I wonder. Jiraiya-sama said Tsunade-sama took a new apprentice with her. Hinata has not been here for 2 weeks, is she Tsunade-sama apprentice? Denton frowned and said I wish it could be me. Lee stood back and took a stance before he charged forward and slammed his leg against a log and it shattered into a million splinters, making both his teammate look at him in shock. Lee turned and said Naruto if it wasn't for Naruto, I would never be a ninja again because he brought Tsunade back to heal me, if it wasn't for him I would be dead right now. Gaara came to my hospital room while I was injured and he went to finish what he started in the exams. Naruto showed up with Shikamaru and saved me while I was passed out. Ai-sensei arrived later, but he told me it was those two who saved me when Uniji and the others went to stop Sasuke. I came to help I got there and Naruto was fighting a man who could use the bones in his body as a weapon and he was holding his own. I wanted to repay him and told Naruto to go get Sasuke. Well I took on the bone nin, I gave it everything I had to defeat him and I would have died. Then except I was saved again by an unlikely source. Gaara saved me because he came to repay Naruto for saving him from the darkness the demon inside of him placed him in. In the end it all comes down to my life is owed to Naruto and this village has done everything they can to destroy him and I can't follow this village anymore. As he reached up and pulled his hide off and dropped it on the ground. Denton looked at him in shock and asked what are you doing Lee, you can't give up your dream to prove yourself a ninja to everyone just like that, you trained too hard to throw it all away. Lee said you not understanding Denton, I wanted to prove I was able to be a ninja yes, but I also want to be a ninja I can be proud of. I can't follow a village that would throw away a hero just like that. What stopping them from kicking me out next or you or anyone else? You saw it today, the council and the Hokage are in a power struggle, and I don't think Jiraiya-sama is really trying to be the Hokage, I think he's buying time. Neji said you're right Lee, he must be giving Tsunade-sama and her team time to get ready for whatever they got planned. Tenten frowned and said not you also Neji. Neji said like Lee I owe Naruto a debt Tenten, I heard my cousin who has never done me any wrong because of my blind hate for the main branch. I destroyed years of happiness that I can never replace and now I have a chance to change that. I am going to ask Jiraiya-sama to send me on a long-term mission to track down Naruto and join him so I can be with Hinata. Tenten looked up at the sky and said I don't know what to think or do anymore. I never would have thought Konoha would be like this, I am honestly expecting a civil war soon because I saw how the younger generation acted when they heard what the older generation did to him. As she looked down for a moment only for her eyes to go wide as she jumped away as a kunai hit the ground where she had been moments before. Neji activated his bloodline and looked around and said there's 4 of them, all wearing Anbu mask with the kanji for northeast on them. They have us surrounded. Lee asked what do you want? As he took a defensive stance. The voice said you have been corrupted by the demon and must be illuminated to stop the corruption from spreading. As several more kunai sent shurikens flew toward them and Neji began to spin and screamed Kaiten. As chakra stopped the weapons and he grabbed the shurikens and threw them at one of the root members. The sound of them hitting a log did not stop Neji as he said Lee, drop the weights while I cover you, Tenten, 4 o'clock. Tenten acting quickly pulled out her weapon scrolls and leaped into the air screaming twin rising dragon. As she began to launch all kinds of weapons in the area Neji told her to attack. Lee dropped his weights and was gone in a blur, soon finding one of the root ninja and slammed his fist into the mask of the nin breaking the mask and he did a roundhouse kick screaming leaf whirlwind. As he kicked the man in the head snapping his neck. Tenten having used up both her scrolls landed on the ground and the root member who had been hiding behind a tree charged at her and Tenten smirked as chakra strings formed and she yanked on them and her weapons flew into the back of the root member killing him. Neji during this time had charged toward the one who had replaced himself earlier and was engaged in a Tajustu fight when Neji said, you are within my range of divination 8 trigrams 128 palms 2 palms 4 palms 8 palms 16 palms 32 palms 64 palm 128 palm strike. As the man slumped to the ground dead. Neji looked around and said I don't see the other one, he must have gotten away, we must inform Jiraiya-sama immediately. Tenten said right, who were these guy? Neji said Root, that was the name Jiraiya-sama called Danzo bodyguards. Tenten frowned and said this is crazy, are we the only team to be attacked?